All right, welcome everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the Corporation of Township of Portsmouth, November 6th, 2024. Start with roll call. Councillor Bailey.
Here.
Councillor Hurst. Present. Councillor Goida.
Present.
Councillor Stoulis. Here. All right, this will begin our moment of reflection. That concludes our moment of reflection. Ms. White, confirmation agenda, please.
The council approves the November 6th, 2024 agenda as circulated, and that council approves the addition to the agenda as follows. 6.1.4 questions received from council and the additional information provided by staff.
Move for that, please. Councillor Hurst, Councillor Stoulis, any questions or comments? All in favor? It's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest today? Seeing none. We will move right into our delegations. Our first one is from Halton Conservation. I'll welcome Joe and under the table. Promise to keep Council Bailey civil today. She's a representative board, as you're aware, so.
Good morning, Mayor Seeley and members of the council. My name is Chandra Sharma. I'm the new CEO of Conservation Halton. 2 months in the job and drinking from the fire hose. But I've been with Conservation Authority for 25 years. Prior to that, I had worked for Toronto Region Conservation Authority for 20 years and then Niagara Peninsula for 5 years almost. So I'm very dedicated to the work of Conservation Authority. I wanted to, before we start, Craig Mackin, who is our Director of Operations and Parks, will be doing the presentation today, and we'll both take any questions. But before I start, I want to thank you for appointing an amazing member to our board. Sarah, I'm already impressed and looking forward to working with you closely. And also want to thank Mayor Seeley for taking the time to meet with me in my first or second week. That was very, very important to me. I value the relationship and I'm looking forward to stronger collaboration between the two organizations. So with that, I'll hand it over to Craig.
Yes. Thank you very much. So we've got a presentation today on the conservation area strategy. It was recently approved at our board meeting last Thursday. So we're pretty excited to have this going. It's been a lot of work the staff that have put into this. So we can get on to the next slide there, please. So just a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about today. We'll go over some of the background, some legislative requirements, how this kind of came about, and then get into some of the key components of the strategy. Slide. So a little bit of an introduction. So we own about almost 10,000 acres. We manage a few thousand acres more, but we own that just under 10,000. 820 of that is within the township of Puslynch. The biggest obviously being the portion of Mountsburg, which is in Puslynch. The conservation area strategy, the main purpose of it is to guide the future management of all our lands that we own and manage. And to ensure that the space, our properties, our lands become protected for years to come. Next slide. Legislative requirements. So in 2021, there's some changes to the Conservation Authorities Act. As part of this, they prescribed some mandatory programs and services that the conservation authorities all had to undertake. Included in these services related to the conservation area, conservation and management of the lands that we own and manage within our watersheds. And it required a new set of plans and strategies to be developed by the end of this year. And one of those is our conservation area strategy. The other component that's tied to this one is our lands inventory, which will be completed by the end of the year as well. So next slide. So a little bit about the inventory before we get into the strategy. So if you can just click through these next, there's a couple bullets here. So what is it? A compilation of the data. So what we wanted to understand is what properties we have, how big they are, some of the key characteristics of it, how we came to own it. So all of those 12 little sections there, the location, the parcel description, date of acquisition, ownership type, all those types of things were researched, found. It was a lot of digging through old paper files. We've had on some properties since, you know, the fifties and sixties. So it was going back through a lot of paper and kind of digitizing as we went along, and just really understanding what we have and how it meets the new criteria. Next slide. So now the strategy. So the strategy, what it is, how does it shape, how the conservation strategy will, or how the conservation authority will manage our lands now and into the future. It includes these 5 key objectives, which we'll talk about in the next couple of slides. It's got some overarching objectives, our natural heritage and connectivity assessment, land use categories, programs and services, and then the process for periodic review and updates. So about the programs and services. So under the legislation, conservation authorities need to provide or may provide methods and strategies on how we're going to do those kind of 6 bullet points that are there. Secure land interests to prevent our entry and make sure that we're maintaining our properties effectively. Maintain our passive recreation facilities, so our trails, those types of areas. Make applications or comments on matters under the Planning Act. Conserve, protect, rehabilitate, establish our natural heritage. Plant trees, as you all know that we do and do well. And then develop our policies for land acquisitions and dispositions. So that those are some coming pieces that will be coming in 25 and beyond. So next slide. Key components to the strategy. So as I mentioned before, there's those five key sections. So the objectives, which we'll get into on the next slide, helps us make decisions on managing our lands. Natural heritage shows how we will augment natural heritage, working with our partners and integrate with other publicly owned or accessible managed lands. Our categories, so this is where it kind of gets a little bit difficult, and I'll show that in another slide, but there are different categories so that we can classify our lands so that they align with the acts. And then our programs and services. So what we're doing with our lands, what services are we providing, how they were funded, how we will fund them moving forward, is all under the program and services section. And then the process for periodic review, pretty straightforward, how we're going to keep updating this plan and the associated plans and policies as we move forward. So the objectives, so we can click through here, there's about 10 of them. So the purposeful land ownerships, we wanted to make sure these are the key components of our objectives. Purposeful land ownership, we want to make sure that it's land that aligns with the strategic vision and with any applicable acts and regulations. Serve as a leader in providing exceptional outdoor recreation and educational opportunities, safe, sustainable access and protection, public access with long-term protection of natural features. So again, we're stewards of the land. So we want to make sure that although we're allowing public and activities to occur on the land, that we're still protecting the environment. Build, engage, and educated community. Cultivate our strong partnerships, deliver the programs and services that reduce natural hazards, climate resiliency, conserve, this is a wordy one, conserve, rehabilitate, and manage natural heritage. This one, number 8, really important for us at Conservation Hall, integrate historical and traditional Indigenous knowledge into our conservation land management. We've got a great partnership with our Indigenous Partners Council that we work with on a lot of items when it comes to our lands. Innovative tools and technologies. And the last one, participate in land use planning to advance conservation land management objectives. So next slide, please. Natural heritage and connectivity. So I think the big one on here is to notice is, 100% of landholdings within the township is all green belt protected. So that's kind of an interesting point and a key one to hold on to. So the strategy includes an assessment of natural heritage, how we're going to secure and how those will integrate with our lands and some of our neighboring lands as well. So there's properties that abut up to municipal or regional properties that we'll be working together with our partners on that one. Next slide. Land use categories. So there's 2 different things here to remember. So we've got land use categories, and then we've got also land classifications. So the categories are kind of the overarching description of a property or component of a property, and then the land classification. One parcel can have different classifications depending on the property. We can go into the next slide, get some little bit more detail. So these are the 4 main categories for our properties. They're all fairly straightforward, active, places like Kelso, Glen Eden, Mountsburg. The main portion of Mountsburg would be an active. We've got our passive conservation areas. So an example of that might be Robert Edmondson, which is fairly close to here. And then some management areas and obviously administration areas where our workshops are over at Mountsburg or where our main head office is on the edge of Burlington. So that, now, this is what I mentioned before. So these are our main, classifications for each property. A property can have different classifications for different areas within the same property. So that's where it kind of gets a layered approach, but a little bit muddy. We can have, an area like Hilton Falls, where we've got some environmentally sensitive lands where we don't want the public to go that we want to protect, but we've also got some forest management lands where we could potentially look at managing those, logging or some other way to maintain good forest health there too. And then with the reservoir, obviously it's got some natural hazard lands as well. So it's kind of a mix of all in one parcel. And water management, yeah. So through this process, we engaged through the public and through our municipal partners throughout the strategy, throughout the inventory. We got some great feedback from both public and municipal partners that we included into our strategy, or that we took into consideration and made some changes to that. What we will be doing now every 5 years, as the act says, we'll be going forward and changing this, updating it as needed over the next every 5 years is what the regulations state. But we'll be doing it on a very regular basis, making sure that we're not, that we're still heading in the right direction with our strategy. So that's the last slide. So we can take some questions now if there are any, and my information is there. And Trina Sagan, she's our manager of lands. She is deeply involved in this one. So if any of the staff have questions as well, she would be a great contact for them as well. So.
All right, great. Thanks for the presentation. That was quick.
Yeah, I knew I had a time limit.
You don't
I'm
you
good
actually
at
don't.
meeting the time.
I mean, technically you do, but when it's a partner like this, I very rarely do I hold people to the 10 minutes.
Good to know. Good to
But,
know.
but it is in the rules.
I'm a real follower, so.
Next time you don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah,
also-
next time wear your comfy clothes and I'll take your time.
I've been here 6 years now, and it's the first time I've seen you, so I appreciate you
Yeah,
coming.
and This is my first council meeting as a rep from Conservation Home, so,
Oh,
yeah, so this is good, so,
Great.
thank you.
No, it's nice to put a face to a name, and, anyways, I'll turn it over to Councilor Bailey.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think it's important to bridge the communication, like, it's really important to have that. And it's nice to see you in person, so.
Yeah.
I just have a question, it sort of relates to the strategy, but
Mhm.
from a Puss Lynch perspective, you mentioned the 3 different properties that are within Puss Lynch.
Yep.
But I guess I'd like an understanding of how those lands fit into the greater watershed.
Yeah.
And I would presume because of where they're located, they're sort of headwater
Mhm.
location.
Yeah.
So, due to that being pretty important, just wondering if there's any distinction in how headwater areas are protected or maintained, or, what could change using this strategy to kind of highlight the importance of those lands.
So I think for this one, and jump in, Chandra,
Sure.
is for specific to the strategy piece, the strategy will protect these lands, right? So that's really the main person, protecting, and how we as landowners are gonna manage them moving forward. So in theory, they would be, and again, because these properties are all greenbelt protected, they're always going to be in CH ownership, so they wouldn't be going into private ownership or anything like that might impact the headwaters or environmental water quality or anything like that. So I don't know if you've got anything to add to that.
No, just to add, aligned with the land strategy also is a requirement for a watershed strategy. Watershed strategy is looking at the science of the entire watershed, the headwater features and what needs to be protected, and, riparian buffers and wetlands. So that's another layer of protection beyond this strategy of the headwater features. And in addition to that, as we know, Mountsburg is also important flood control reservoir for us. So that makes it very sacred from a protection perspective.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And in terms of that,
Yeah.
just based on where it's located as well,
Yeah.
if there was any flood concerns, generally it's south.
Downstream,
Mhm.
South of
downstream,
where we are.
and that's
Yeah.
why these reservoirs are very, very important, and how we manage them, because there is protection of downstream risk and vulnerability from this, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think this wasn't, I don't think in your presentation today, but I think it was in the study that I got. I was pretty ready to read through. So the climate change vulnerability and risk assessment, it said there's a qualitative study that assesses potential future climate risk. Where does the Morrison Pond kind of fit into that in terms of risk assessment? And I know we've talked about asset management and putting a value to something like a pond or a wetland.
Mhm.
Can you speak a little bit to what the Morrison Pond value is or how that works with flood? And maybe that's something to take away and come back with.
I can handle
Yeah,
that. Yeah, I'm learning about the watershed, but I generally can tell you. I think that part of the watershed strategy, we are launching that work. The climate change vulnerability assessment as part of the strategy, and we will do an ecosystem value assessment of all of our natural assets.
Okay.
And that natural asset ecosystem value study will not only assess the wetlands from a carbon sequestration or carbon storage perspective, but also will bring values from a flood storage and other ecosystem values that are associated with natural heritage features. So that will all be done as we move forward with the watershed strategy.
Okay, I think that would be really interesting to just learn about, like, you know, what value the Morrison Pond and the Badna wetland provides.
Mhm.
My last point is in regards to the natural heritage and connectivity. The one land in the map, part of the swamp, actually has some passive recreation trail on it.
Yeah.
And I believe it butts up to County of Wellington forest
Mhm.
in there, which also has one. So we've kind of got these two properties and they both just have this one little keyhole trail.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if through the strategy, or if you can take away, it would be fantastic if we could try to connect that trail system.
Yeah,
Um,
100% agree. And Council Bailey, you know, I'm the parks guy,
Yeah.
so I mean, anytime we can get people out doing outdoor recreation is
Yeah.
incredibly important for me. And so one of the next steps of this is our trail strategy. So how we can work with, you know, look at our own trails, our own properties, but then how can we partner with other like-minded agencies to create better trail networks, bigger trail networks, or even just more cohesive trail networks, so that you're not hiking down a trail, all of a sudden getting to a dead end, and then, you know, in 100 meters beyond that, there's another trail right there, you know? So connecting between those, our properties and others, because I think that's really important, especially when we saw through COVID how important access to nature is and being outside and everybody's mental health. And I think, you know, so that will come next in our trail strategy.
And at the top, that would be great. I talked to Aldo at the county 3 years ago, and he was keen on, trying to help get that kind of going. I think that's all for me. I did walk it. I still call it Burns Conservation Area.
Yeah.
But I was walking there the other day. It's such a well-maintained.
It's a beautiful little spot, kind of a hidden gem, a
Hidden
little
gem.
hidden gem.
Yeah.
I think just to add to that, from a health and wellness perspective, our larger objective is to see how we can be an active partner in active, no pun intended, active transportation routes, you know,
Yeah.
across the region on a regional scale.
Yeah.
And anytime our conservation area can link to another one of those routes, you know, it serves a larger purpose. So that will be part of the trail strategy to look at those connections.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Councilor Hurst?
Yeah, thank you for coming. I appreciate just the walkthrough of kind of the work that's going on here. I think I would echo the mayor's comments. We're unique and within this township that we've got 3 conservation jurisdictions within the municipality, which is probably odd from a provincial standpoint. So it's good to see all the work that's going on and compare and contrast the different groups. And I think I would echo, this is the first time I've seen in person, so I appreciate that. 3 questions that I had. So, you know, on an annual basis, we see the budget contribution, and then I don't want to make this a budget like in the weeds conversation, but can you maybe just explain some of the major capital projects that are anticipated in the near term, and obviously of relevance would be ones within the township or near adjacent. If there are any significant ones, I'd appreciate hearing about that.
Is there something planned at the 3 conservation areas?
Yeah, so for on the park specific side, so there'll be some, nothing major at any of the parks or the properties within the township of Bush Lynch. We're continually doing site upgrades and everything at Mountsburg Conservation Area, just to make sure it's, you know, it's being maintained effectively. So things like paving, that kind of thing. But all those are funded through our entry fees. So that does not have a tax impact on any of those capital improvements. That's all done through our user fees. So there is some doing that. We do have some other capital projects like Crawford Lake and Kelso Glen Eden that are underway, some exciting ones, visitor center, boardwalk, lodges, those types of things. But when it comes to the properties within the township of Bush Lynch, outside of, you know, a parking lot and some routine upgrades at Mountsburg, that's as exciting as it gets.
I can maybe add to that. You will see a capital line item in the budget, very small one, which is based on the general administration, like IT type of services, the computers that are necessary enabling services for staff. So if there is a line item that is a portion to each municipality based on the current value assessment, those are the cost, GIS, IT, and those type of upgrades. Yeah.
There may be flood control.
That control, yeah, the
Yeah.
flood control measures for the Mountsburg town, yeah.
Okay.
So those are costs divided between municipality there, there's a larger impact. All the other work, if there's a cost that will be special levy to Halton region and
And that's good. I think, you know, I wasn't looking for anything specific. I
Yeah.
think it's more of a high degree of confidence, Council Bailey representing our interests there. I think that I would just like to hear whenever there are plans in place for those properties that are in the township. I think it's a great opportunity to share that within the community.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And maybe just to piggyback on the walking trails, yeah, the collaboration and just making sure everybody's aware of the recreational opportunities that exist, because sometimes, especially we're a transitioning community, we've got new residents that are coming and going constantly, and just making sure that they have the opportunity to take advantage of the great recreation facilities that are there. And unless you know where they are, yeah, sometimes hard to track down. My other question, I'm glad you spoke a little bit to the watershed strategy and the trail strategy that Councillor Bailey noted, but I'm curious if you can speak to maybe at a higher level, you know, the changes or evolution you've seen or planned into the future around your climate resiliency approach to managing the lands within your remit, but also I think very sensitive for this community is obviously the watershed piece and the excess soil management piece, which I won't go down that rabbit hole per se, but I think it's all kind of part of this larger piece. And if you can maybe just share some thoughts in terms of how your approach has been around climate resiliency and planning for today, but also setting yourself up for success in the future.
Thank you. So. We think, and I want to, this is my approach, we think, and we have been for 70 years, conservation authorities are inherently adaptive management agencies, right? That whole cycle of study the watershed, implement actions, monitor it, and then understand it better, and then go into the planning. That's the adaptive management cycle. So we've been in the adaptive management process or business for a long time. How we are currently managing it, yes, we are managing on the flood side. We are studying, managing, undertaking basic infrastructure work that is needed. There are ministry standards, and we always try to go beyond those standards to make sure the flood infrastructure is working well. We have updated flood information through floodplain mapping that can help us advance decision-based, planning or decision-making, science-based decision-making. So those are the key components we continuously monitor. We have a very extensive monitoring network that can give us trends on the water quality and quantity in the watershed and what impacts are we seeing. Now, having said that, we do need to prepare for the future, and we are seeing the changes. There's a general understanding among conservation authorities that the changes are happening. So for that reason, we have been working on a couple of things. One is a research agenda to better understand, if an ecological system is going to be impacted by extreme heat. What species can survive? How can we build better resilience on the landscape to avoid, like we've seen, emerald ash borer, if we have better biodiversity, we have better ecosystems, right? So one species dies for whatever reason, we can plant something that is going to survive that changing climate. So that's on the research side of things. On the flood management side of things, we have a plan to update all the floodplain information that we continue to do that. And we also have a huge multi-year asset management plan on the flood infrastructure to take a look at our flood infrastructure. On the entire watershed scale, like I said, we are trying to, through this strategy, do some modeling, water resources modeling to see. We do have future projections and historical climate information easily available through climate models on a regional scale. And if we integrate those pieces into our land use information and our local watershed models, we can get a pretty good understanding of how the geomorphology of the watershed is changing, or if there's high potential for erosion and flooding in the water course. So that's the continuously doing the science and understanding. And in this budget for this year, we have indicated science as a major driver of this budget. With the watershed strategy, we'll be taking a few pieces of technical studies across the watershed that will help us understand better, those pieces.
That's good. I think those are things that I think like what impacts our community. So I'm encouraged that it's certainly part of the work you guys
Yes.
are doing. And whenever you're completing those strategies, please reach out.
Yes.
Happy to provide perspective. But thanks to me.
Thank you.
Mr. Gordon?
Yeah, thanks, welcome, and thanks for coming today. Congratulations on your new role. I think it's really great to have you here, getting reports like these strategies, budgets, things like that. It's one thing to see them on paper and read through them, but I think it's really important and really valuable to have you here in person, both for ourselves, but also for the public who maybe doesn't take the time to read through these things, but having you here to present makes the public aware of all of the great work that you're doing. So thank you for doing that. I don't really have any questions. Councillor Bailey asked an excellent question, which I was curious about in terms of the trail connectivity. So I'm happy to hear that there's a trail set strategy in the works. And yeah, I don't have any questions, but thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, suppose.
Yes, thank you for coming and starting on a good relationship with us, and looking forward to the future when you can help us out, we can help you out in various issues. I have one question with respect to your statement here, conserve, protect the natural and manage the natural heritage. Mine is more directed at invasive species, and a particular concern here in our township is the Phragmites.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you have a strategy for that. Is there a magic bullet out there yet that we can use here? It just seems to be very prevalent and expanding at a very rapid pace.
Yeah. So Phragmites, we see it on our properties too, and it is a battle, and I'm not an expert in it. We have a restoration team at Conservation Halton that does manage with that. And I know they are looking at, not necessarily just Phragmites, but an invasive species management, strategy, how we can manage it on our own properties, but then how we can also be a resource for our municipal partners to work with on their properties as well. So we are working at that. I'm not an expert in that, but Phragmites is huge. We've got, there's the hemlocks are being impacted, so we're trying to be proactive in some of our properties for that as well. So there's, with climate change, there's going to be more and more, and we need to kind of stay ahead of it and have a plan on how we're going to address them moving forward.
Well, if you have a magic bullet, please share it with us.
Once we have the invasive strategy, it's a common problem across many conservation authorities, so we are all working together. And our municipal partners, like I come from Niagara, where they were asking me, can you help do this? So there will be multiple strategies, I think. I don't know if we have the magic bullet yet. Yeah, but we'll be happy to come in and share that information with you, and if needed, work with you to see what can be done.
And I think if staff, just add, if staff have questions, you know, or need expertise, like by all means, reach out to us and we can get them connected. Although I'm not the expert, get them connected with the right person at Conservation Halton that can help find that magic bullet if it does exist. So.
Okay, great, thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
I heard you mention a special levy for municipalities. Now, if there was an infrastructure upgrade, is that how things are dealt with? So, your predecessor attended likely virtually, and the council asked for some more parking on the Watson Road property. So if it's Conservation Halton, I was called Halton first, but, if you were to enter into some sort of improvements there, is that what you're saying? That you would then do a special levy? It wouldn't be absorbed through?
There'll be two mechanisms to do that. So in the Conservation Authority Act, we are now allowed to do municipal services. They're called Category 2 services. So Category 1 is mandatory, Category 2 is municipal services or any other services, and Category 3 is non-mandatory project, which like park management and other which are revenue generating or federal government, service delivery, there's a huge range of those things. If a municipality wants us to do something and there's a collaboration there, it can be undertaken two ways, either through a special levy if you want to do it that way, but we've all signed service level agreements, and they are very broad agreement. They allow us to now work with you to cost things out, and if there's a general agreement to work with you on a fee for service basis to do that. If we can find external money to raise money for that, if there is an opportunity to do that, we can do that as well.
And I recognize we don't contribute significantly to the budget, but we do contribute annually and have owned the property since the fifties. We've been contributing for a long time. But I feel it's still on the council's radar to add some passive additional parking there. We don't want to pay for it though. Just saying, let's keep it on your radar.
Yeah.
Is there a co-pay opportunity possibly?
Yeah.
Do we want to pay the full freight? No. So I'll leave that one with you. You spoke about an ecosystem value study and I'm gonna focus on the Morrison Pond. I had no clue. I've lived in Morrison almost my entire life. My joke is I moved to Aberfoyle for 5 years, got homesick and moved back home to Morrison. It was too far. And I didn't realize that you were the owners of that pond. I thought the surrounding property owners would own it. So it's been brought to our attention that allegedly lily pads were introduced to that pond. And I don't know if I would classify them as invasive, but they were, I guess I'm a layman, but a decorative type thing. And what I'm hearing is that they're just reproducing, dying, decomposing, ruining the pond. I remember skating on it as a kid, and that's likely not possible any longer in the winter. So my question to you is the ecosystem value study, would you be taking a look at that, and please investigate whether those lily pads are native or implemented invasive or even introduced was the word I was looking for. And the second component of that is you said you have a restoration team. We also appreciate if the restoration team could take a look at it. So there's the Morrison Pond and then there's the road, ours. There's then their culvert and then a second piece. So I don't know if you own the whole shooting match or if you just own the large piece. So I think we pause there for a moment.
As far as ownership goes, I have to look at our mapping to see exactly what we own there, because we do have a lot of parcels where it is very confusing. Where it might look like one property, but there could be 3 different property owners on that, on what looks like one property. So we'd have to look into the details on that. But if there is, if there's specific projects, again, our restoration team is great. And they can often even find funding and through grant opportunities to take on projects. So that's something that they could look into and we can flag that for them to take a look at.
As part of our monitoring program, I'm not sure if they have gone that far or looked at it. Maybe they are. I don't want to speak for them. But something like, we discovered chestnuts in the water courses and ponds, and before they're taking over. So we work with the Invasive Species Center. It's a federal agency. They do a lot of this type of work. So, we'll have to just go back and talk to the team. We'll put it on the list. We'll put the parking lot on the list for future.
Well, and you know, maybe it's all, why, analogy, you know, maybe it's just someone's opinion that's kind of grown in the community.
Yeah,
And maybe they are native and maybe that's just the natural cycle of the pond. I have no clue. I know it's changed, but I'd appreciate
Take a look.
somebody taking a look at it. The other comment, you mentioned that your lands are wholly within the green belt.
yeah,
And I don't want to give a false sense of security because greenbelt protection is not a full protection of those lands. We have, we'll use the University of Guelph as an example. They own property on concession 2. And that was ideal farmland and it's now a hole in the ground. So you as a property owner could decide to open an aggregate pit on your properties. If all of a sudden the aggregate mapping changes and you find you have the best gravel in the world located under that land. And all of a sudden your budget pressures become astronomical and you're looking at a $30 million windfall. And you say, well, I want an aggregate pit. So I would ask of you as an organization to develop either a policy or something to ensure that the next iteration of the leaders, that aggregate, that you're protecting this land from all development, it's, you know, and that includes aggregate, so. I might take some heat for those comments, but,
Yeah, there is a land disposal and land securement policy that's associated with the strategy. I'm not sure if we've finalized that.
No,
No,
no.
so,
but you also see the strategy where we also had purposeful ownership, and purposeful management of our areas too. You know, and generally, you know, the reason we have a property is because there is a high environmental significance or natural hazard piece to it. So, we would take that. into
unless he knows something below the ground.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
don't.
no, I wasn't happy it doesn't identify it, but,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of the rules are flexible for aggregate because it's a needed resource, so. As you stated, and we have aggregate located near creeks, Mill Creek has it, and maybe that's why the creek is there, because of the aggregate in the ground, I don't know. But, if we're here to protect the land, I want to protect it from everything essentially, and let it maintain its function, natural function. And one more. Oh, your study of your lands, is that, I have 2. The study of your lands is the intent to identify lands for liquidation. That's a loaded question, you know, so. Is that a possibility of through your land study?
So when the changes were made to the Conservation Authorities Act, one of the things was identifying properties for development. So what we have done through that is that's one of the criteria that we've been looking at as we're going through our inventories, and we don't have any that would fit the government's criteria for being for development, so.
So sure, that kicks into the greenbelt component too, for that type of development. It would fit. And then lastly, I don't believe any of the properties in Whistlish through Conservation Halton permit hunting. Is that a
That's
correct
correct.
statement?
That's correct, yeah.
So we had a delegation, seemed to be, I'm trying to go through some topics, but later this year, requesting Sunday gun hunting as a private landowner, which I consider conservation, they're not a public entity, sorry. Not, your lands don't automatically default into accessible by the public. You can
Correct.
permit people, but you're a private landowner.
Correct, yeah.
If the township were, and we don't know if we're going to do this, if the township were to ease their restrictions on Sunday gun hunting, that would not change any of the permissions on your property.
No, that's correct. That's correct. The uses of our property would have to be approved by us. So if the municipality did allow Sunday gun hunting, you know, we don't have hunting at all on our property. So even if it's a Sunday, a Saturday, a Tuesday, it doesn't matter. You can't do it on our property at this current time.
And if, I know generally, the CAs have the approved uses signs and they'll have a red strike through. If the township were to change any rules of uses, like, is it an unreasonable ask to just highlight that no hunting at all is permitted on the property versus just being buried in maybe 8 different you know,
Yeah.
this is something that might come up. I guess.
Yeah, that area is a little confusing because some CAs do allow it.
Yeah,
I come
yep.
from Niagara, we issue hunting permits, right? It's been going on for ages, and so I think we can highlight that
Yeah,
information.
and we are working, and you don't know this yet, but we're working on a sign strategy as well for our properties. We want to do an inventory to look at what fencing looks like, the signage, the, you know, access points, all those types of things. So that's on, our lands team is gonna be busy next year. Our lands team of one is gonna be very
Yeah.
busy next year. But that's one of the things that they're gonna be working with some of our park staff and some other staff to see, like, you know, look at our signage, for example, because even in, you know, expectations change, you know, we want to make sure that the signs are legible and readable and that what is permitted and not permitted is clearly defined on the signage. So, and ownership, like you said, Morrissey Pond, you didn't know it was ours, you know, so making sure that there's some clear ownership and contact as well.
Well, GRCA has lands that it does permit hunting,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
confusing to the public,
Yeah.
right?
It is
Which is fine,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
it's understandable, but,
Yeah.
lastly, and I said it already, the Mountsburg site is
Yeah.
fantastic. It's actually quite easy to access from Busselton.
Yeah.
You go down towards Councillor Bailey's house and zip across Watson and you're there. When the 401's backed up every other day, you slip into Campbellville and it's you really get home. So,
Yeah.
but it's great. I hadn't been there in years. I took my kids there. They had Sugar Shack in the spring when the
Yeah.
sap runs.
Yeah.
And the Osprey and all those things. So,
Yeah.
it's an exceptional facility. And I saw a bald eagle in the Downs Conservation Area. Thanksgiving, I pulled out, it was sitting in the tree. And then there's a hobby farm with pigs and chickens. And I thought, how many of those chickens, anyways, but they're making a recovery as.
Yeah.
Are they must be coming south? So it's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
neat.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm
That's great.
pretty sure you had at least one or two at that facility.
Yeah, we do.
So thanks for the presentation. Sorry for going on so much, but,
I just wanted to mention and to the public that's listening and everything and to thanks to Conservation Home for providing passes at the library.
Yeah.
So the public can actually go into the library and sign out a pass that lets them get into the parks and stuff, which is a really great thing, I think. So, especially with all the changes coming to Crawford Lake and
Yeah.
also like that, so it's good value.
and beyond that, if you want to mention the PRX program. We updated the board, it's not been publicly announced, but we are working with BC Park
I'm
Foundation and
gonna pause
others.
you real quick.
Yeah.
This goes on the internet tomorrow. So if it's not
That's
been
okay.
publicly, it's
It's
gonna
been
be,
recorded
it's gonna be now.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I can say so much.
Okay.
Yeah, the Park RX program, which is a free prescription from doctors to visit our parks from a wellness perspective. And what we have done, there's only a handful of participants at this, we are one of the leading conservation authorities. What we have done is we won't be charging for it, we'll make it free. So Halton Region is now joining hands with us to promote this to all of their physicians. So more and more people can get this prescription from a health perspective, and we can offer that free to people. So if this municipality wants to do something similar, we'll be welcoming that.
What it is like, it's no different than going to the doctor to get a prescription for a medication, right? Is you go in with an illness, whether it's, you know, you're rehabbing an injury or whether it's mental health related, and you go and you talk to your doctor then would prescribe you 2 hours of nature 3 times a week or whatever that is. Then they actually have a prescription pad that they give you a prescription, then you come to us, and you would be able to get free access into the parks for your prescription. So it's, again, it goes all through our healthcare professionals. We're, as Chandra said, we're the first park system that is part of this program in Ontario. So we're pretty excited to be it, and there's definitely more information coming in beginning of December, so.
I was gonna wait until the official
Yeah.
launch before I said
Teaser.
anything, but
Teaser.
yeah, I think it sounds.
It's launched.
fantastic.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah.
4 hours.
Yeah.
I'll take and get this online.
Share it, share it.
We did announce it at our board, which is a public meeting.
Yeah.
No, I was kidding, but we do post it on YouTube, so nothing.
Yeah.
I'll make quirky jokes.
Yeah, and it was the leadership of our local MP in Milton, MP Vancouver Dean, who's really excited to do this with us. And
That's a great idea. It's a great idea. Excellent, thank you very much. Do you have a resolution?
Yes, it's to receive for information.
You voting for that? Oh, no, I thought we got it. Council Bailey, second by Council Spills, all in favor? That's carried.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much. Nice to see you again.
Yeah.
Next, I'll invite Mr. Joy now. Sir.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. That was 10:1.
For those who don't know me, my name is Bruce Joy, and I'm the president of the Puss Lynch Minor Soccer Club. And I'm happy to be here. Got the slides up, so we're gonna have our, next slide, please. So, the agenda today is, I'm just gonna give you a very brief introduction to the club, and some of you may or may not know this about us. Then we want to talk about the two fields that we have from the township, which is the Puss Lynch Community Center and the Badenoch Field. Okay, next slide, please. So, Puss Lynch, Soccer Predators. We've been 40 years in existence as a soccer club. We're a non-profit organization recognized by the government. We're the largest minor sports organization in Puss Lynch. We're licensed by Canada Soccer as a quality soccer provider, and we have been for about 4 or 5 years. And we're one of the first 10 or 15 soccer clubs in the country to get this designation. We have close to 600 members in the following divisions. So Timbits under 8 that play Saturday morning at the PCC. We also offer a recreational division, and we also offer a competitive division as well, and these will go up to the age of U18. So we have kids from 3 to 18 playing in our program. Next slide, please. So I'm very happy to say that we were the most successful club within our district league this past year. This also includes Guelph, Cambridge, Waterloo, and Kitchener. We had 3 teams competing for their own Stanley Cup, and we won 2 of them. So we're very, very happy that this happened for our club. Next slide, please. So you guys are all familiar with the master plan in 2014. I believe there's one coming in 2025. Okay. So in that master plan, it said 1 field for every 800 participants. There is a long-term need for 7.5 soccer fields for the club. Currently, the township provides 3.5 fields, and the soccer club rents 4 additional fields. 1 at Eden Mills and 3 at Arkell. Next slide, please. It comes up. So the PCC fields. The new main field was a great success in 2024. It's 14 years, but we got there. Timbits were very excited to return to the new mini field this past year. As you know, last year we were transplanted to Arkell, but everybody was so excited to get back. A lot of parents were disappointed that they could not get the Aberfoyle soccer snacks because of the farmer's market, but we're very happy. I would like to say at this point in time, a massive thank you for the grounds crew and the township staff for making these fields happen, and the grounds crew kept them spectacular. So thank you, Mike, if you're here or hear me, but yeah, it was fabulous. And if this weather keeps up, the outdoor season will never end. It's absolutely crazy. So next slide, please. The upgrade. So I'm not sure if this has been budgeted or not, but there was a requirement for a new backstop for the main field. West side. So when the kids miss the net, it doesn't go into the forest and they get lost. I think, I know that I talked to Mike, but I'm not sure if it's been approved yet or for next year, but.
Still working budget.
Okay, right. So we have put that request in for a backstop, so to stop the balls from going into the wood, is the swamp, whatever, the wood there. Okay, next slide. Okay, we're gonna talk about Badenoch. I didn't have to put a name up there. That is a leftover of, the shed. It was quite funny. I drove to Bandock on the Wednesday morning. And I went, what? I then looked down at my phone and saw that I got a message from Mayor Sealy saying, your shed burnt down. And I went, yeah. So, with that being said, I went to see the new roof that the township put on. I was all excited about it and I saw that and I was, oh. So, yeah, so everything that was in that shed was lost. We basically stored our recreational soccer's because it ended in September. So we put all the stuff in the shed and then we organized it for the next year. So unfortunately, all was lost. Can I go to the next slide, please? So what we've learned from this is the soccer club was not insured for the contents. We do have insurance. It's by the Hub Insurance for director's insurance. They have two. They have director's insurance and office insurance. We don't have an office. And they don't really have a rider for sheds, which we're finding out. So, okay. So now we are looking into securing tenant insurance for all of our storage facilities, which would include hopefully a new shed at Badnock, the shed at the Post Lynch Community Center, and there's a little tiny shed out at the Arkell Fields. These are the requests. The club would like to be involved with the design and the building of the new shed. Because we'd like to make it better. Maybe having some electricity over there to it, so it could have lights to stop the vandalism. Or a camera to do that. There's a discussion, or I've heard there was a discussion about putting lights on the field like we have at the main field. I'm not sure if that is on the budget for next year or not. But if we're going to develop this, let's do it right and do it right. We did apply for a 3,500 township grant. I did put in here hoping to amend at time of writing. I know that we amended the grant as of a couple of days ago. And then after reflection, I guess my question or my request would be, I think there's a limit of $50,000 on the.
It's 1%, half a percent of the equivalent of 1% tax levy or 1% tax levy?
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly what it is. And after reflection, I thought, well, hopefully the township could increase that for 1 year, because I don't want our troubles, our hardship to reflect on, take money away from other organizations, well-deserving organizations in the township, if you were to approve us. So I just thought it was something I was thinking about. I don't want that to happen, because there's a lot of great organizations in this township, but I don't want, just because our shed burnt down, if you were thinking of doing something, I don't want it to go away from other organizations. So that's my kind of request for the shed. I see, is it the fire chief? I haven't got back the report back yet on the, so I don't know if it's been done or not.
When is it for you? There's a process.
Because it may be because of insurance, so I just want to know if I have to present something.
So through Mr. Chair, the FOI process that
Yeah.
we go through is, it's a confidential process between the requester and the municipality.
Yeah.
And it follows the process that's set out through the legislation. So there's a time period for it, which is likely why you haven't heard back yet.
Okay, because I requested it, paid money for it, so I'm just not sure how long it takes.
Yeah.
Because the insurance company may want that, so I'm just kind of asking, what kind of time frame can I expect?
Right, so through MFIPA, which is the legislation that governs it,
Okay.
it's typically 30 days from the
Okay.
time the request is made. But that is, again, it's a sort of, on a case-by-case basis in terms of the record being fully disclosed or partially exempt. So
Okay.
again, that's something that we won't talk about publicly today,
Sure.
but
Okay.
yes, that's the process.
Okay, so now, so if they ask, I can tell them it'll be within 30 days. Perfect, thank you. Next slide, I think.
Actually, I'm gonna pause you.
Sure.
there. Just go back to that.
Okay, go back.
So we have a grant policy in place.
Okay,
And my recollection is the amount of monies we can allot to applications is half of 1% levy increase. Or
Okay.
the equivalent of 1% levy. So that goes up every year because when we first started 6 years ago, 1% levy increase was approximately 38,000. Now it's just under 50.
okay,
So each year, we generally, as assessments go up, we have a little more money that we're permitted to allot to grants through that policy.
correct.
There was a time where we would go well beyond that with grants to either the Pusselage Lake. So we always have the opportunity to do more.
Mhm.
However, we look at all the applications at the same time.
Yeah.
Generally, we don't look at, well, you had your shed burned down, we're gonna rock and Peters.
Yeah.
All, we look at the merits of each application. I will say, though, our minor sports do receive quite a significant discount, which is support from the township year after year, right?
Right.
Baseball.
For rental, yeah,
$7 an
Yeah.
hour or something.
Yeah.
Small, right? So that's all part of the discussions, but
okay.
no, we definitely want to support. them.
So I just want to make the point that I don't want to,
Yeah, you don't want to.
I don't wanna
jeopardizing
implement-
somebody else's
Yeah.
funding.
or a thought process
Yeah,
there.
that's all good.
Sounds good.
So.
Thank you. After the fire, we've been approached by numerous organizations and people for support, and I wanted to take this time to thank everybody in their community for their support as we work through this, as we navigate through this. So thank you, everybody. Okay, and next line. Dramatic. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks.
Does anybody have any questions for me?
Thank you. Just a question for you. You mentioned the licensed quality soccer
Mhm.
certification that
Yeah.
you have. Can you just speak to kind of what the qualifiers are for that and or what you need to maintain that
Sure.
license?
So it's all about, you had to fill a ton of paperwork saying that you've got let's say the budgetary things in place. You've got a training, you're following Canada Soccer Training Program, so you're teaching kids the right things about soccer, and you have those things in place. So it's a combination of a variety of things. But you had to put it all in place. You have to have a technical director, you have to have a co-head coach, all these sort of things, which we did have. And we have to maintain that every, I think it's every 4 or 5 years. We have to resubmit.
Okay, so there's no infrastructure qualifiers for that.
No.
Okay.
No, there's not.
Okay. And the backstop request, I hadn't heard of that yet, so I've kind of noted that we can do that. And just curious, you said there was about 600 participants.
Yes,
Do you know what percent are
Quisling?
Quisling versus?
Around 50-50.
Around 50. Okay. And then, yeah, I had questions on if people have reached out to you to help donate toward replacing, but you've mentioned you've had a lot of people.
We've had a lot of people reach out to us on social media and email us. We're just, as I mentioned, we're navigating through this process, trying to get all quotes on replacement equipment, and then we may or may not do something in terms of a social fundraising, but
So in terms of equipment, I see there's still netting out.
Yep.
So the netting's kind of taken care of, but it's things like what equipment?
soccer ball, benches, pennies, cones, just everything you would use in a day-to-day basis. We anticipate the loss was about $25,000. Because we had 14 teams, so it's quite a lot.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, thanks for.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Hurst?
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. I feel conflicted, like you have some really good news of what the club's doing, and
Yeah.
then it's like, by the way,
Yeah.
it's like shed burned down. all
Yeah.
that type of thing. Maybe just a couple questions. So I think, maybe one, in the event that there was lights put in at the Badenoch pitch, would it increase the number of games that get played there? And I go back to the kind of your numbers of you know, the requirements of 7.5
Yep.
fields.
Yep.
Can you maybe just explain a bit more, like presumably you play there when in sunlight, but what would that do to the multiplier impact of having lights in that particular field?
Yeah,
in terms
so,
of field usage?
yeah, so usually games are played Monday to Thursday. So the field rests per se, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We don't have games unless there is a cup game or something else. So having lights there would allow us to double the number of games that we can use. Friday, Saturday, Sundays are sometimes used for practices during the day. But in terms of games, we don't schedule games on the weekends.
Okay, so maybe like my layman terms would be lights there would double the occupancy potential. for
Yes.
usage. Okay. I think I just wanted to get a handle on what that
Yeah.
looks like.
And having lights there may eliminate us having to rent an external field, like in Eden Mills. We may say, okay, we don't have to rent that anymore and pay a higher price. We can bring it back in within the township.
And that's maybe where my second question goes is like, without getting into confidential financial details,
Sure.
but like ballpark, the cost of the rented fields as part of like a percentage of your total operating budget, or can you maybe share just to get a flavor of what the cost of those fields are to the soccer club?
Making me think here. I know that the township offers us a 75% reduction. When we rent the other fields, we have to pay the full 100%. At Arco, we don't rent the fields, we maintain the fields, so Arco probably costs us $20,000 or $30,000. So in terms of a cost savings for having lights, not having to rent an external field would probably save us $10,000 to $20,000 roughly.
I think that's kind of where I was getting at.
Yeah, a year.
with yeah. Yeah, annually.
Yeah.
Into the future. Okay. And maybe my last question, just in terms of shed design, I know that shed out in Bad Knock was a pretty basic shed. It was
Yep.
like a door and that was it.
Yeah.
More or less. Without getting into like a very detailed conversation around like what a shed design would be, but can you maybe share like what
Our
you
thoughts
would
are?
think would be a functional shed for the club?
Well, let's say if the original shed was half this table, we'd like to maybe expand it to double.
Okay.
Okay, so there's more space as the club is growing, so because it was pretty crowded in there. Also, and I don't know how to define it, if there's an overhang. So when it's thundering and lightning, the players, the referees have a place to go for safety. So to get out of the rain, to get out of the thunder, something like that, that would be ideal.
No, that's helpful, because I think that was just a very basic shed out there, but I think
Yes.
when the opportunity arises, like hopefully this doesn't happen again, but
Yes,
this is the window of making sure that it's functional for future
Yeah.
uses.
now I know there's there's a hydro pole 20 yards away,
Yeah.
running electricity over it, because if you want to do that, then you could have lights on, like spotlights or whatever else, so if someone comes onto the property, you have a camera for security reasons. That would be helpful too.
That's helpful, and I'm just, one last question, was that shed used exclusively for the soccer club's storage, or were
Yes.
other?
Nobody else requested it.
Okay.
The shed at the PCC, the tennis, well, there's a lot of tennis nets out there, so I'm not sure, the tennis club is non-existent.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of tennis stuff out there as well, the top half of the shed.
That's helpful, I just was making sure that it was, ultimately utilized it, so it
Yeah,
sounds
it's-
like it's exclusively the soccer.
Well, it's not exclusive, it's township property. So if it was bigger shed and there was another organization that wanted to come out and use it, I have no problem with that.
Great, thanks, Bruce.
Councilor Greta?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I go with Counselor Hurt's comment about like conflicted. It was great. It was a great year.
We had a great year.
Other than, but anyway, I am happy to hear that
Okay.
2024 was a good year, both competitively
Yeah.
for the organization and, you know, it's really good to hear that the facilities worked well.
It's fantastic.
And I think it's something that, everyone should be really proud of.
I agree.
Your organization, the township, the community, it's just so awesome. So I'm happy to hear that it's working well.
Great. Thank you.
And you, endured the years it took to get there, but that's great to hear. In terms of the sheds, or I guess, so my question is, what sheds or what storage facilities, not just the one that was at Badenoch, but what other facilities is soccer using to store equipment
Okay.
or jerseys or things like that?
So there's a green shed at the Puslynch Community Center right beside the
Yeah.
horse arena.
Yeah.
And that was originally built upstairs to do the horse people, because it was like an announcer's booth. They've never really used it as far as I've been around for 20 years. So therefore, since we have the soccer fields, we've just moved in and store stuff there.
Okay.
Okay, I know the tennis club store stuff there as well. And whether or not, pardon?
That's the only other store.
Then we have a small storage article, but that's on private land out there. So
Okay.
within township, we only store stuff at Badenoch and QCC.
Okay. Yeah, okay. And I'm guessing obviously there's not enough space at the green shed to hold everything.
No, unfortunately not.
But you're looking into getting tenant insurance for that shed,
Yes,
because is that where, like, whatever you have?
well,
is
from
in
what
that
I've
shed?
heard is the insurance company, I guess the township would have to rent or lease us those properties or those sheds. And then we could get tenant insurance, like if you're renting a house. For the past number of years, we have not paid a rent or anything like that. They've said, go and use it. So I'm not sure the legality of what is required in that from the township's point of view and our point of view. But I'm looking into it. I've asked the questions is, I think we should have it. What do we need to have it? So I can't really give you
No, that's.
an answer yet,
that's-
but we're looking into it.
And then just one other question, you mentioned that you've had some support from the community and from other groups for the equipment.
Mhm.
Has anyone reached out in terms of supporting the reconstruction of the shed?
No,
And is that something that you think might be an option?
That's what I questioned.
sure. I would then direct them to the township if they reached out about building it, a construction company building it. I'd redirect them because we don't own the shed, the township does. But, I'd be happy to be involved in, like I said, the design and development of that shed.
Thank you.
Mrs. Wilson?
Great, thank you for your big and young presentation. I'd like to ask about your grant application, 3,500, you're hoping to amend it. What was the 3,500 for?
The 3,500, if I remember correctly, it was for some training balls for the children. Some replacement netting, and some other training equipment.
What were you hoping to amend it for the replacement equipment?
Well, the original grant was 3,500 that we put in. The amended grant was about $10,000 or $12,000. We put in, even though we know our losses are gonna be around $25,000. We won't anticipate asking the township to pay all of it. That was out of the question. And it goes back to my comment about if this is going to affect other grants, then we don't want it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Hey, two more questions. With respect to the lighting and with respect to the shed, I know that when we were building the soccer field, the club contributed money toward that.
Yep.
And would your club be willing to contribute money toward the lighting and also to the shed as well, in the same way?
We'd have to look at it. Our year end just ended in October, so we're gonna look at our books. Our next, AGM is in January, but once I figure out how much money we have left out, we know that we're gonna have to spend so much money to buy replacement equipment, and then we have to keep a security blanket per se, in that, budget for a rainy day, like COVID or a shed burning down. But yeah, we could potentially look at contributing again. I think 4 years ago, we contributed $20,000 to the township for the building of the new, field. So we take a look again. I can't comment right now because I just don't know the dollars.
In terms of your new equipment, you're gonna be buying new equipment, do you have a place to store it, given that, fire?
We're gonna put a bit of it into the green shed and a bit of it into my garage.
Is there garage and shoe?
Yes, it is.
Counselor Bailey lives close.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. I think the Prowler signs that have been put up at the facilities look great.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a great job. Glad the new field's working out. We are gonna be going through an update to our Parks Master Plan, so
Okay.
I want staff taking into consideration, my recollection was for baseball, the lights meant that if the field was lit, it equated to 1.5 fields in the equation of needs.
Yes.
You stated 2 today. So I want staff to take a look at what the new large field does to that equation, plus potential to adding lights to Badna through the master plan update.
Yeah.
I've had a conversation with you with some of the potential challenges of putting lights there.
Yeah.
It's still a bit of an unknown. I don't think I need to keep it secret. Apparently the bedrock is right there.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the conduit for the power is going to be the biggest problem, the biggest hurdle, but listen, let's look at it.
Sure.
What is more of a priority for you? So you're saying you want a bigger shed. We have the possibility of replacing the shed as status quo on the concrete pad. I'm making an assumption that concrete pad was only minimally larger than the actual building. So you're going to be faced with, we could put up a shed maybe this fall
Okay,
on the pad that's there.
Yeah.
Of a construction type that isn't as easily burnt. And
Okay.
then things go back to relatively normal.
Yep.
If you want a bigger shed, that's going to require more study, because we're gonna have to either dig up the old pad, pour a new pad.
sure.
Maybe the existing one was under 10 by 10. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 10 by 10, yeah.
So then it maybe doesn't need a building permit. And then because it's floodplain, because
Sure.
it's like this and that, it just snowballs out of control.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, what's the preference? Do you want a shed replaced quicker, or do you want a shed that could possibly suit your needs?
Great question. Great question. I would love a bigger and better shed built immediately, but that is not happening. I would say the preference would probably be build a shed right now, and then we could alter it later on to have a covered section or whatever.
No, so I want
Yeah,
that,
but yeah, but with that being said, so I would say probably just having a shed replaced would be more important.
so my thoughts are, the new facility at PCC looks amazing,
Yes,
and we have those pavilions.
yes,
Just what, 3 of them now? My thoughts are through the parks plan update, we consider a picnic shelter pavilion, call it what you want.
Yeah.
at The bad enough for that shelter.
okay,
You're talking about the inclement weather, versus an ad hoc right now because of the fire.
Yep.
And then, you know, a lean, I call it lean-to.
Sure.
People put firewood under them, historic people, whatever they're called now. In the future, maybe, but anyhow, so.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm leaning. I'll ask Mr. Fowler, power. I know historically there was power for the old baseball lights. One tower's still there. I don't even know if it works.
it does not work. The Osprey lives on top of it.
Yeah.
By looking at it, I'm not sure if it was structurally damaged in the fire, because the fire did reach it. And
Yeah,
if
let's
I
not go
remember
there.
correctly, there was some wood panels on it,
Well, my question.
and they're
for
gone now, so.
Mr. Fowler is there power in the ground that was to that shed, or is there any power on the property currently?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, there's no connection to the light standards at the county right away.
So, and this might be before your time, when they decommissioned the baseball lights, was there a hydrometer that was removed, or is there anything from the road leading into the property at all?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, there's still an underground conduit that is buried. It was severed at the hydro pole. Because they did have power for the lights and also in the well, there's a pump and pressure tank still there.
I would suggest something solar powered, in the interim, but, anyhow, I think, we're gonna discuss it today, the shed, isn't the questions?
It was around installation, those questions, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the path forward for this shed in the near future?
So through Mr. Chair, I think staff are looking to take some information back and bring some formal costing to council through the budget process to consider. What that would look like, where it would be funded from, et cetera. I know that we had some initial costing that Mr. Fowler provided. He did get a quote with a contractor out on site, I believe, last week, so we do have that sort of initial costing. But just looking to bring some further details back about funding and that sort of thing through budget.
So it's great you're gonna store it at your house, your equipment. I would be more inclined for the township. I feel it's always a tough budget year. I'd be more inclined for the township to replace the shed. It was our shed at our cost.
Yeah.
And then versus us needing to go outside of our grant policy, maybe 12 grand.
Yeah.
And then if we don't receive money from the shed, then that would be, you recognizing that we may not need to contribute to the replacement of your equipment.
Okay.
Kind of we'll do the shed, we'll work with you on that component, and that's kind of the consideration. So my question then to staff would be, so I'll go back up.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of community support, like at least initially on social media for you. So
Yeah.
I also feel that you might be able to have partners there to help with your costing.
Absolutely.
So if that is available to you, is it necessary for us to contribute as well? Because we're gonna help you somewhere else.
Right.
So let's get that figured out first.
Yeah.
Do that call out, because that's the first time I've heard the number, and it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Yeah.
I knew it was gonna be expensive, but I knew it was a lot of money. I would like council to. Sorry, I remember my question. When does your season start in the spring? I recognize it's weather dependent and all that good stuff, but my concern right now is if we delay this for the budget process, which is
Sure.
approved in February.
Sure.
We may be too late in the season for you to get your equipment out there, you're delayed, whereas if we discuss this now.
Yep.
Somewhat commitment from you that if we go ahead with this shed, that's the understanding that, we're helping you. We can maybe get it in this fall.
Yeah.
If we do it on the existing pad, and that doesn't delay in the spring.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, to answer your question, the recreational and Timbits leagues start at the end of May. Our competitive teams go year round. So we bought replacement equipment for them and they're keeping it at their houses, each competitive team, so we go indoors. Okay, so they've got that, but for the other stuff, we can't wait till May to order it because it takes 2 or 3 months to get everything in. So we have to order it, let's say, December, January, and then store it somewhere.
Okay.
And then we've already started ordering stuff. That's why it's in my garage.
Yeah, I get it. I'm trying to get you a shed, so I'm working on this.
My wife would like that.
Yeah. We have been trying to develop a donation policy for a few years. I'm not sure why it's taking as long as it is, but for this situation, I know we can, but if council were to give staff direction to at least consider in-kind donations from contractors for this shed, can we go forward with that this year, this fall?
Mr. Chair, I can't recall which project we actually did some funding on our website for. I don't know if it was the tennis courts or the PCC construction itself. And I recall that we did have that sort of built out through our website where we could accept donations. So while it would be ideal to have the policy in place, I think there's a mechanism for us to do that sort of community outreach and receive donations before that's in place. So Staff can certainly take that away and look at how we can make that work currently. We are bringing some information back to council, I believe on November 27th, I believe is our next budget meeting. Which is, we have a meeting on the 20th and the 27th, and one of them is our budget meeting. The 20th, so that's not too far out to get some further information to bring back to council. To get a decision made. I know if it is with and Mr. Fowler might be able to comment more, but the one concern about getting the shed rebuilt in terms of weather was just if we needed a new concrete pad. We really wanted to get that done sort of in the fall so that we weren't waiting until the spring, but if we're utilizing the existing concrete pad with the Decembers that we're having, it is feasible that we could do some construction this year after November and get it after we sort of have our next budget iteration discussion.
Nothing is ever easy for the township. So what I would like council to consider is that we give staff direction now. I'm assuming the $18,000 quote was accurate. I would ask council to consider giving staff a direction to place the shed within the $18,000 budget to be used by the cash in lieu Parkland as and then to explore cost sharing possibilities with donations from the community, if we can leave it that broad, and that may be a contractor that's willing to donate labor or the materials, and I would want the staff to have that discretion to either say yay or nay. Worst case scenario, we pay the Parkland dedication and we can have that discussion today. It's kind of where I'm at because I understand only a month away. But I think, I know we have decent Parkland dedication reserves. I'm worried. We're gonna say, oh, I'll be fine, and all of a sudden we get this awful winter and we won't be able to get it built. The staff will be too busy. If we have a little window now, $18,000 is a lot of money.
Yes.
But it also gets you guys set up for guys in your turn.
Yeah.
We're playing soccer in the spring.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
I'd like to ask, Mike Fowler, how would you go about, getting this built? Would you have to go to tender or would you, have you got a contractor in mind that's, you can sole source, or how would you do that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, 2 quotes were received for the shed. 2 contractors viewed the site, both deemed the original pad to be in stable condition enough where we can rebuild on it. And again, yeah, the costs that were quoted were for a more fireproof structure, so tin clad siding and tin roof. Again, 2x4 construction. And it was the request at soccer at the time was for a roll-up door to be included instead of a man door for ease of getting equipment in and out.
So, what would be the timing? Are you gonna go out to get some quotes and all that sort of thing? Do you have a design in mind, or is there a standard design that you would get from somewhere? And I'm just trying to get an understanding, do we have time to go through the process and get it all done before the end of the year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was no intention to actually tender it out. It was gonna be the winning bid between the 2 contractors that were contracted. Again, it would be consultation with Bruce himself on just any little minor modifications that he would require, but other than that, it would be the same footprint because we're utilizing the same concrete pad.
Can you get it done this year? That's what I'm, bottom line.
After this meeting today, I can check with the contractor.
Any thoughts?
Well, I'm in favor of going ahead, give him some, space to store the equipment. I guess I don't like the fact that, it's 2x4, construction, and I don't know how secure that will be.
Yeah.
That's my concern, is security. I go back to the original concept you discussed, is, getting all those, construction,
C-cans.
C-cans, yeah.
The zoning is the problem there, but I mean, you could look into 2x4s that are made out of, are they steel, Mike, or are they tin? I don't think people enjoy working with them, but you can get 2x4s that are made out of metal,
Yeah, and,
but the cost will go up, so. I mean, ultimately,
well, I'm okay as long as township's happy with the design, I'm not gonna, like, get down in the weeds on it. I made a great, in principle, I support going ahead, getting the quotes, and, as you're suggesting is, get it done and ask for contributions from, various parties to help pay for it.
so I'll go around, so that's kind of where we're at. If council's comfortable with moving this forward, and then I'll have some additional comments. Councilor Bailey?
Yep, I'm in support. I'd like to see something get replaced. I miss it.
Yeah.
I drive by and I miss the shed there. Just 2 points. We talked about a little bit of an overhang and I don't see why we couldn't kind of extend a little bit of an overhang with the roof on the footprint that it is. So maybe, Mike, if that can be factored into some of the design, just having a little extra overhang facing the field, I see the value in that. And what's my other point?
Samir, I would, suggest that your idea of having a pavilion there eventually is a better idea than having overhang. The more you complicate the design now, the less likely gonna get it done this year.
Sure. But if it fits within the 18,000 and you can just overhang it a little more instead of buying metal
I think I understand what you're saying.
2x4s.
Have the, you know, the
Extend the roof
trusses
line.
are, well, that's why I got in trouble with them. You know, yeah, I understand what you're trying to say is if there's enough room, you can stand under the,
Yeah.
these chart, I don't know.
Because there was no overhang
Yeah.
before.
Correct.
I like it.
So,
My other comment is just making sure that this structure gets put in the asset management plan. I don't know if it was in there, but if we're gonna do this work, make sure it's in there. If we're doing wood and we're concerned about it not lasting, you know, as long, at least we know when we can be replacing it if it's within the asset management plan.
there's,
Yeah, I'm like, get on with it. I'm encouraged that, Mr. Fowler noted, roll up door, a bit more functionality, even if it's the same, footprint.
Yep.
I think would be how I'd look at it. One question, I'm just looking at the Google Earth image and there was a round cement cistern there. Like, that's not a,
well,
That's the well.
is it a functional well? Was it capped? Is that an environmental issue that needs to get dealt with there? Yeah, maybe that's a.
From my perspective, the wooden cover burnt down.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was decommissioned or operational.
we should have Mr.
But
Fowler.
yeah,
answer.
yeah, he would best be know.
To you, Mr. Mayor, I do not believe within the past 20 years that well has been functioning. So it was well, if it was operational, it would have been well before my time at the township.
Okay, fair enough. Maybe just my suggestion, and if not for this construction, but it's like a big chunk of cement there, maybe it gets removed at some point. I won't go down that rabbit hole. I'm supportive. Let's get on with it. And I like the idea of a pavilion there longer term, because I think that would probably aesthetically be a really good fit there long term.
Sounds good.
Jessica, I have a question for Mr. Fowler. Mike, if we're gonna rebuild it on the existing pad, if the existing pad is okay to use, can construction be taking place? Does it have to be done by a certain time, or can construction be done in January, February, March? I mean, we do it in home construction. I'm just wondering are we working on some kind of timeline that isn't necessarily a concern?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, because the pad is already established, no concrete work is required, so it'll basically be framing and cladding. So both companies have indicated that they can work into the winter, building the structure. So there's not an urgent timeline. They both feel confident that they can complete the structure even if it's snowing.
So I guess my other comment is that I am in support of rebuilding the shed. And if it needs to come out of Parkland Reserve, then so be it. But if there isn't a huge urgency to have it built by like the end of November or something like that, I think that there are a great deal of really excellent contractors in this community that would potentially be willing to participate in some shape or form, whether it's the labor or the material or whatever, to contribute to the shed. And it would be a shame to not explore those options before we just go ahead and put a contract together. So I would just, whatever our direction is today, that component of it, I feel is something that we should look into further.
Yeah, we raised some very good points, Councilor Goyda. That sort of circles us back to the staff's original suggestion that they bring back something on for the 20th in 2 weeks' time. I was wondering, would you be able to gather that sort of information by then?
So if you, Mr. Chair, we can certainly prioritize getting some engagement on our website, just sort of getting an expression of interest, I suppose, from the community on what that sort of in-kind or financial donation would look like. We can do that in short order after this meeting and bring some information back on the 20th, and then we can see where we're at. If we have sort of, I see the issue as well with if we're urgent to complete the construction of the shed and we enter into a contract with a firm, and then down the road, we have someone that's looking to maybe give some in-kind support on construction, we've sort of missed that opportunity. We're in a contract, so we can do that. Again, it doesn't sound like there's urgency. We can work over the winter, so we may just be better to take our time to engage the community, maybe earmarking the money through the budget process.
So, I'm in favor of Councilor Goyda suggesting is, let's have staff come back with a report on the 20th and proceed from there rather than forcing something right now that perhaps Councilor Goyda so.
So for clarity, what I was suggesting was the 18,000 was the ceiling worst case scenario. And this was intended for staff, Mike, to go out and get the ball rolling, because if I've done this in the past, I've taken a position and what's gonna happen is the shed's not gonna be built. We're gonna go through a budget process and be issuing grants. So the sooner we build the shed and the sooner we have engagement with the community to know if there's gonna be donations, the sooner we're gonna know where we need to give our grants to and all of those things. So the intent was, here's the ceiling, 18,000 award contract to a contractor. But go, Bruce and Mike and everybody go work on finding support, because then maybe we get lumber donations, labor donations, and we don't even need to award the contract. However, 2 weeks is not going to be the end of it. I do not suggest leaving this till January or February, because if we need our staff to help and support, they're gonna be plowing roads, they're gonna be salting roads, they're gonna be sanding roads, and we're not gonna have a shed in May. So,
Well, Mr. Mayor, my motion is have staff come forward with a report on November 20th for consideration by council of the options available, including putting out with a two-bid contract for getting in-kind assistance from contractors in the township.
so it's moved. Seconders, Councilor Bailey. I'll just wait a second. It's taking. Are you good? Sorry, can you just read what you captured?
So I'm just, we're receiving the delegation. We're also, the council supports the construction of the new shed at the Badmouth Field. And that therefore, council directs staff to report back at the November 20th budget meeting on the potential for in-kind and financial donations from the community in order to fund the construction of the new shed with an upper limit of $18,000 and any remainder to be funded through the cash and the Parkland Reserve.
Was it 18,000 plus HST or was it 18,000, Michael? I know we get that back, but I don't wanna a ceiling that we're.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that was HST included.
So you, everybody heard it, you moved it? Councilor Bailey seconded it? Go ahead, Councilor Bailey.
I think that sounds good.
I'm good.
Okay, in favor? Yeah. You don't get the vote.
I'm in favor.
That received it too, right? All right, thanks.
Thank you very much,
Appreciate it.
everyone. Appreciate it.
Moving on, with consent agenda items. Resolution, please, or recommendation. You don't have to stick around, Bruce.
That's okay, thanks.
So the consent agenda items listed for the November sixth, 2024 council meeting be received for information.
Can we move that, please? Councilor Boyd, Councilor Scholes. Any items to be removed today? Who's first? Councilor Bailey? Who's first?
Just one, 6.6/6.7, which is the town of Petawawa and the Whitewater region regarding the OPP costing.
Okay. That's good.
So likewise, the same thing,
But nothing other than those two?
nothing out of those.
Okay, can we receive the remainder of those? All in favor? So let Councilor Hurst go first, as he, sure, Councilor Hurst?
Sure, it was just a request of, in reading through the communications, it was a request of staff just to review, is this applicable to our municipality, and if so, request a similar, funding request of the province to offset OPP costs. You know, it's a rising thing all across the province, so I think it was more, I was looking for a bit of guidance from staff if they think this is a relevant request for the township, and if so, then move forward with it.
You want to go to Councilor Scholes first, and I think there'll be a similar question. And then
Yeah, I've asked that question of staff and then, based on the answer and, further discussions with our mayor, I put together a suggested motion, to put forward. I was wanting, waiting to put it up on the screen, I can just,
well, I'll just have her answer Councilor Hurst's question, whether it's appropriate, and
sure, absolutely.
your thoughts on that.
So through you, Mr. Chair, when staff initially reviewed the two pieces of correspondence, it was, as I understand it, in relation to municipalities that directly pay the OPP, and it appeared as though there was no contract in place, and they were looking for that sort of financial burden to shift back to the province. And so with the township situation being different than that, in that the contract is with the County of Wellington, as we're a lower tier and we pay into that accordingly. This specific wording of that resolution doesn't necessarily apply to the township. However, there is a potential argument to be made that if there was a little bit of tweaking to the resolution to maybe represent our situation a little bit better in terms of perhaps a disproportionate amount of funds that the township is paying, we could still support this resolution with just a few amendments.
And that's the resolution Councilor Scholes has penned, so if you're able to share that, that would be great. Sorry, you were trying to
So
go.
that's okay. I'm just gonna get it.
Like the gap.
Sorry, I'm gonna try to zoom this in a little more so it's readable.
And so what I did is sort of tailored the, motion to, cover our circumstances. So I basically say where the township goes to a second tier small road municipality pays a disproportionate share of the upper tier policing cost. And whereas blah, 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 this is about other two municipalities. And I go on to say, be resolved, the township supports the resolutions of the council of, town of Petawawa and council municipality Tweed. And request the province also provide financial assistance to second tier small municipalities to offset the disproportionate share of policing costs. So I tweaked that to, describe a specific situation. And, Mr. Mayor, I wonder if you could just comment on, the disproportionate share.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Spillis. Projected costing of OPP policing in Wellington County is going to about 20 million next year. And back in, I believe, 99-ish, under the Mike Harris government, they changed the way taxes were collected and then went to an assessment-based approach. So as your assessment is higher, you pay more taxes. With Wilson Township having assessments that are higher in the county, we pay 17% of the total taxes collected by the county, but have, 13 or 14% of the population, plus less homes. OPP does their calculation on a per household cost. So as a rural community, we have less houses, so, but we pay more. And so that's why I felt this resolution was somewhat applicable, but the wording was challenging. End of the day, we pay more into the county coffers as our assessment values are higher. We have less draw on the system, the OPP system, so we are subsidizing the remainder of the county. So if the province has $3.3 billion to hand out to residents as a $200 rebate, it may have been more appropriate to help rural and small municipalities on many fronts other than a $200 rebate. So I'm supportive of the resolution.
Mr. Chair, can you also comment on the calls that we get compared to, say, Central Wellington?
Well, I asked for this at county as well to have though historically in the inspector's report, they would have a breakdown of the number of calls. And my recollection was Center Wellington was just under 4,000. Rockwood around 1,100, and the balance of the municipalities in the county around 700-800 calls. So that is why I asked for that data to be included in the inspector's report. It's good information to see who's driving the calls, whether one was called, but the calls for service are being, it's disproportionate to one municipality, but the costing is not shared as per the calls or where the service is being needed. Does that help? Does that answer it?
Yeah, it does. It puts a context in one way. I use the word disproportionate.
Sorry, so can I suppose move that motion, Ms. White Fox?
Yes.
And I get a second, or so we can, Councillor Hurst. So, sorry, I can go back to you, Councillor Hurst. I had Ms. White Fox answer. Did I give you some clarity? All right, Councillor Bailey, there's a motion on the floor.
Yeah, no, I'm in support of the motion. The only thing going through my head is that from Safe Communities, it is funded through police services. And I just want to make sure that something like this wouldn't impact funding to Safe Communities programming.
How do we know that? Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
Well, basically what the motion's asking for the province to top us up, basically, we're funding.
Yeah.
More than our fair share we pay for.
yeah, I'm
Whereas the
not
other
seeing that.
municipalities are in a different boat, they want the entire amount. Whereas all we're saying is, what's we're paying this
Yeah.
proportional amount.
Yeah, so I don't see any concerns there. I support that.
First.
I'm good. I think I would add the context in terms of the ratios and the percentages are quite helpful to build the case for what Councillor Sepulveda said motion. So my only suggestion would be is within an appendices or something, an example could be provided, because I think that makes it much more apparent to decision makers.
Well, that'd be challenging. I mean, staff would have to go back to an older inspector's reports, dig that information up. Unless, well, I asked county for the inspector to provide that. I didn't get a clear answer. They've changed the software they use. The province, my understanding is provinces mandated that all the departments, not departments, but whatever you call them, districts or the detachments use the same software now for reporting, which then changed the way they track some things. So it sounded like they maybe had take it as a takeaway and see if they could provide it, but the information is there somewhere. So I'm not sure how staff would be able to fill that ask, Councilors. This what question do you have? Sorry, I can pause for the part that we pay more money into county coffers. That's reported almost every year by councilor, by the treasurer of the county. His budget presentation, but the OPP response to the bill challenging fund. Any comments on that?
Don't have any specific comments other than the idea of adding around our contributions, but I'm not sure if that sets those contexts that Councilor Hurst is looking for exactly.
I think if it's a difficult process, I think it was more for me, it's putting an example on a platter for people to comprehend and understand as opposed to just like a statement saying, oh, let's make it equal. Well, what's equal look like in our context? So maybe that's not an achievable in the current regime of data management. I'll leave it there. It was a suggestion.
Okay, thanks, Councilor. There's Councilor Brennan.
Yeah, I'm in support of it. The only thing I would maybe ask is, if this resolution is intended to go to, sorry, it's not up there anymore, but to the province.
Premier, Solicitor General, Mr. Finance, Speaker, Arden, Association, Mr. Health,
I
Ontario.
guess I just was wondering if, and maybe this is a question for you, Mayor Sealy, have we had this type of discussion at the county level already? Like, I guess I'm just wondering about the approach. Have we talked to the county about it and kind of not gotten anywhere? And so like now we're going to the province, or are we just going straight to the province and risking, upsetting?
Well, we are going straight to the province. I feel, I don't feel it's inappropriate because we're just saying to the province, okay, send some money to Wellington County to offset the cost of the rural municipality. So it's not as bad as, but I have brought up in the past the funding of the OPP in Wellington County, and I get a very strong response from treasurer that they do not want the billing model changed from the OPP. They support it, but that's not, and it gets lost because that's not what I'm advocating for.
Right.
Not or wasn't advocating for at the time. It wasn't, I was OPP takes how many households, how much the cost of policing was, and this is how much it is per house, and the county supported that. What I was saying was the internal distribution of the cost is maybe needs to be reviewed. But it keeps getting lost, and don't mess with the funding model from the province. We support it, and because we have so many other things, I kind of let that one sit away, but
No, if you feel that it's
still-
not, it's appropriate to go this route, then.
I feel this because it's a resolution from a fellow municipality, and we're not interfering with how the OPP determine our costs at the county level. That's not what we're asking. And I think that needs to be clear. If we catch any in trouble for this, we're just saying we want the province to help with the policing costs because it's expensive in rural communities.
No, I'm good.
Okay, anything further? Are you clear enough?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor of that one? That's carried. So that was it for consent items, correct?
Yes.
Public meeting, right? November 27th, 2024, 7 p.m. Public information meeting held in person at the municipal office, 7404 Wellington Road 34. By electronic participation through Zoom regarding the following. Zoning bylaw amendment application D14 QUI Quesnel 1873 Town Line Road. Zoning bylaw amendment application D14 Jefferson 86 Farnham Road. Zoning bylaw amendment application D14 SCR 4438 Watson Road. You know, that last name, Paul Butcher. I believe that's it. Great, we're on to 9.2. User fees and charges, I believe that's, is it by Mr. Sam?
Yes, it is. So this is just an update report to council with a request to adopt the bylaw. We did go through our public information meeting on October 9th. We also did a community engagement survey that's attached to the report for council's information. And there's been just a couple of updates based on more recent information received from staff. That's all been outlined in the report. I'd be happy to answer any of council's questions.
All right, do you have a recommendation?
The report FIN 2024-028 entitled 2025 user fees and charges bylaw be received. And the council give the readings to file number 2024-067 being a bylaw to adopt the user fees and charges bylaw.
Can you get a move in, please? Councilor Lewis, Councilor Hurst. Sorry, questions, Councilor Bailey.
I don't really have any questions. I see that the recreation committee's put in a recommendation here to look at, do an analysis of resident, non-resident, and I'll look forward to seeing what that looks like. I'm not sure what that analysis is gonna look like. But I see that that's for 2026 budget discussions. I don't have any questions though for Mary.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Hurst.
No questions. I just, maybe one comment. I thought the amount of feedback was quite high. Would be just my quick perception. I'm not sure if staff has any feedback on that, but that was just an observation.
Let's go ahead. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Go
so
ahead,
it was outlined in the report. The feedback was high. There was an analysis completed by the clerk's team on some of that feedback, and unfortunately there were some, it seems like there were multiple entries made by specific users, and so we've provided that within the report.
Thank you, Councilor Goyette.
Yeah, I don't really have any questions. All good.
Okay. Councilor Lewis.
I'm good, thank you.
So I just want to talk about these questions that were in the people responded to, and that, you know, the person says, should the township need to increase the amount of revenue it collects from the citizen and township provides services? And then how would you prefer the township to fund this? So I feel from reading all the responses, it's clear to me that, it's my interpretation, they don't understand where their taxes go, and there's a lot of feedback that my taxes are really high. I'm sure, like, cumulatively, they are. But if you just take the township portion, I feel most of these people would be surprised at how little we take. So I would like, and maybe council can discuss this, is that the first question be of this survey next budget cycle be, how much of your tax bill is related to township services, and it has to be a mandatory field. Because we're gonna use this as an education component to the residents, and you can put whatever it be, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100%. Because that's gonna give you a feel of what the public understand of their tax bill. And same for, I have concerns around the township provided services. A lot of the complaints within these comments are county services, garbage, recycling, that we don't provide. So I think we need to just do different questions. And would you be interested in raising money to, because one of them says just raise user fees for increased services. So if we need to increase plowing or say salting because we don't get as much snow, are we now gonna put a user, is the intent they want a user fee to have their road plowed or sanded? I don't think that's what they understand, right? So we really need to define the services that we're going to raise taxes to support. I don't necessarily want to go through all the comments, so just. So that's kind of high level. I don't.
And three, Mr. Chair, I think what we noticed as well was there was engagement on the user fees and charges survey. And a lot of those responses would have been better provided through our consultation on the budget process. That survey and that information that's pushed out to the public does include a lot of what you're noting. I think there was a bit of a gap here between what folks thought we were looking for feedback on and the feedback that we received, which was more geared towards the budget in general. Again, as our Director of Finance noted, we did see a lot of the same types of comments come through were coming through from the same user in sort of a very rapid frequency. So we did sort of condense those into single comments where we knew they were coming from a single user, just so it didn't negatively influence the survey results. So again, I think it's just a disconnect between what we were seeking info, what we were seeking feedback on here versus the budget process. So we can look at that and see if there's a better way that we can ensure that the community is responding to the process that we're looking for that feedback on.
It's good. I want to back up a bit because Councillor Bailey mentioned the analysis of the user groups and the composition of those. I'm worried we're gonna start dividing our community. Because it's Guelph kids or Cambridge kids coming to use their soccer fields. If we don't have enough membership to field a team, then they don't get used at all. And I know two organizations that both have probably 50% non-residents. It means the facilities are being used, so, and one of the comments was, well, if you raise the fees too high, they'll stop renting it, and so it's a difficult balance, and our facilities will likely never be 100% cost recoverable, because people just wouldn't rent it too expensive, so there's costs associated with municipality. To me, the composition now, whether it's outside kids or our kids, because we're so small and rural, if we need to bring in outside kids to ensure that the 10 Puslin kids can play soccer, I'm in. So I know my children use Guelph facilities for hockey. It's just the way it works. How many people have taken their kid to a splash pad? We don't have splash pads. We utilize neighboring splats. So I don't want to divide the community by doing this analysis and start trying to charge fees to non-residents that are, so that's just my piece. I look forward to maybe some way to clarify those questions. And if it's services, like this one, the township, so the response here. Township already charges exorbitant taxes for the most minimal of services. We actually reviewed what services you get for 17%. It's not exorbitant, but it's because they're looking at their tax bill holistically, and then just it's an education thing we need to work on. So, all right, that's my soapbox. I'm getting down.
You raise a good point, perhaps, first question you said should be part of the survey, could be part of the budget process. In other words, we were asking public comments on the budget when we said it.
So do it first, the budget.
No. We're gonna take the final budget out to the public for their comment, have their question as the first question.
Yeah.
Because that would certainly make people have appreciation of what it is.
And if we get responses 80%, then we go, wow, okay, we need, it's not on us, it's not our fault, but if we can educate people, it'll just make it that maybe the responses we get aren't as critical or as, that's good.
I wonder, sorry, this is maybe getting a little bit in the weeds, but I'm just wondering if you had a question like that with like, whatever, like numbers, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and you make it mandatory and they select the wrong one.
I just think,
If there's an opportunity to say,
no, you selected.
you revert to prompt right away through the survey, I don't know. Is that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are opportunities to make questions conditional. I'm not sure if through our engagement platform, we would be able to populate a box underneath that showed what the actual breakup was, but it's certainly something that staff can explore. I would highlight, and maybe this is something that we would have to, should consider for our user fees and charges. Kind of front page, landing page as well, and inclusion of some of the tax information, but on the budget engagement, we do always have a graph that breaks down the percentage of taxes that are collected by the township versus the county versus the education. And we do use the symbol of a dollar to show kind of that you're getting 18 cents goes to the township, X number of cents goes to the county, X number of cents. So we can definitely look at more opportunities to highlight that information for the public.
So I was thinking an example, I'm sorry, Israeli, but have examples. If you pay $6,000 in property taxes, 17% is 6,000, 20% is what, $1,200? So let's say 20% because it's easier math. $1,200 is township tax. If you pay $10,000 in taxes, this is the township portion. Have 2 or 3 examples that people go, oh yeah, that's my house. Oh, I feel the advantageous. Mr. Bailey?
Yeah, I've struggled with percent versus actuals. I think sometimes when you speak in percentages, you lose people, but vice versa. So maybe having both available. Forgetting what I was going to say. Oh, just in terms of language, I like what you're saying on the landing page. Instead of saying municipality or township, can we say Puslinch? I just think that makes it personal. It makes it real. It's like, oh, I live in Puslinch. There's my little chunk of the graph. That's me, you know. And I've always wondered if there was an interactive way we could be able to put in, what do I pay? This is what my tax bill says. And then it populates how much goes here, how much goes here, how much goes here. And they see it's only 17% works out to this amount. I don't know if you can put in a, you know, some sort of mathematical equation into something.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the functionality of our current engagement platform doesn't have that. I don't know if there are other softwares that would be available or what the cost may be, but it's
And then, oh, my last question was, in terms of the first question, if the question is, how much do you pay in this lunch taxes? And, you know, someone clicks the wrong percentage, could something pop up that says, wrong, try again? And you almost have to like get the right answer before you move on to the question. And then it's a learning opportunity. It's like, oh, I didn't realize it wasn't 58%, it was 17%, you know, whatever. Is there a?
Mr. Chair, I don't believe, because they're set up to be surveys, I don't think there would be an opportunity to say that you couldn't move past a
Can't code.
question.
It's not a coding program.
Please.
No.
Like a quiz, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, there might be a way that we could look at, because we do have, well, we have Engage Puslinch, which is our engagement software. We also have forms on our website, which, as we know, we've walked through them before. They do sort of populate that. As you select, it does populate further questions. So we can explore if there's a way to link through Engage Puslinch back to a form, where we could maybe have some flexibility to build it out. But we can take that away and see what our capabilities are with our existing software.
I think education is really important.
Yeah, whatever that is,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter to me. I wanted mandatory because I want to give us an understanding of what the public understand.
Yeah.
And that's why I was mandatory. So, you know, even if it was just a prompt, you didn't fill out question 1, but point is just to get a feel for what people understand so that we can push out accurate information, educate.
Yeah, because a lot of people went through the time and the effort to engage, which is fantastic. We want that, but it wasn't the responses I was looking for. You know, so we just somehow need to bridge that.
The second comment you made was on the services we provide versus the county. I think that's important too. You know, our neighbors come up to me, why isn't the garbage being picked up?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think something like that in the questionnaire, somehow leading the people to understand these are the services that we provide. I understand from Justine that sure, it's in the charts, but how many people read the charts? All they see is the bottom line. It's gone up 5%, 4%. Well, it's too much type of thing. Well, I pay too much taxes for so little, and Well, if you really understand what you're paying for.
Yeah, it's all the upper tier responsibilities that are uber expensive. So, yeah, it's good. I just take it as a takeaway, and it doesn't have to be a mandatory question. I just wanted as much data as possible.
So through Mr. Chair, I did add it to the resolution just so that we can track it as direction going forward. So we're gonna be looking to incorporate questions in the budget survey going forward regarding how property taxes allocated between the town and the county, and clearly identify township services from county services within the survey.
Because we want to get answers on user fees and charges, not on taxes.
Mhm.
For this survey. So, okay. You the mover and seconder?
We did.
Are they comfortable with what?
Moved by Counselor Sepulveda, seconded by Counselor Hurst.
Is it good with what? Any further questions before we call the vote? Good. In favor? That's carried. All right, 9.3.1. It's the same. Oh, did I skip one?
No, you're good. I think that
Oh,
was it
sorry.
for Mary's,
Sorry.
and it's great. I think I'm up
Yeah,
next.
you're up.
Okay.
Sorry.
So through Mr. Chair, this report is direction from council to report back on the senior advisory committee and the potential and what that could look like. We were given specific direction from council at our, I believe it was at our October meeting around different options to explore. And so this report just sort of starts digging into some of those options. And staff are looking for some direction related to selecting option 1 versus option 2. And then there's also the discussion around the potentially funding a dedicated committee coordinator position to be funded partly in 2025 and in 2026 to come on board for the new term of council. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can you read the recommendation, please?
That report ADM 2024-052 entitled Seniors Advisory Committee be received, and that council proceed with either option 1 or 2 as outlined in the report. And that staff report back during the 2025 budget process regarding the financial impacts of adding a 0.5 FTE in 2025 and another 0.5 FTE in the 2026 budget.
We have a little that, please. Mr. Goyda, Mr. Bailey? Okay, questions? Mr. Bailey?
Yep, I think it's option 1. So I really like the idea of rebranding the rec committee into Recreation and Community Wellness Advisory Committee. Statistically, there's a general need to improve mental health. And I think creating a committee that can focus on wellness would help sort of meet some of those needs that we might not even be aware of right now. So that would be my choice with option 1 or 2. In terms of the committee coordinator, I'm in support of that as well. I do have a question. It says in the report that this person would also be able to be engaged with a future seniors committee. And I just want to kind of hear if we don't end up doing a seniors committee, is there still sort of reason to have this position?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I would say yes. If council is looking, part of the benefit to dedicating a position to committee coordination is that it frees up our existing staff position, which is a committee and communications coordinator role, to take on a dedicated economic development role. So that would be the idea between separating the 2 roles and adding that full-time position. And so regardless of, what sort of obligation the committee coordinator has, separating the roles adds the additional economic development and communications initiatives outlined in the report. In addition, if council was satisfied with this sort of hybrid rebranded recreation committee and liked that structure and still wanted to go ahead with 2 positions, so what you could do is sort of expand what perhaps we're doing with our committees. If we didn't add that new committee, we might have more flexibility to look at more goals and objectives, different engagement, things like that. So that would be, I think, a decision that we look at operationally when in 2026 and to see what those positions could take on in terms of workload.
Okay, because I do really think we're on a roll with economic development right now, and so I think having a person dedicated to that, I think residents would actually see kind of tangible things happening with kind of a leadership role in that position, so I'm supportive of that. Just a couple of questions, if we're adding 2 members to this, rec committee to be a wellness advisory committee, I see that we've got seniors must be over 65 years of age. Is there a justification or is there a reason why we picked 65?
So through Mr. Chair, that's all up for council's discussion. It's your terms of reference for that committee, so you can make that how you like it.
It's funny how it used to be the 55 plus centers. And now we're bumping everything up like 10 years, so 65. Okay, that, and then, just, this was more from the youth if we're, oh, maybe that was in the different. No, I'm not gonna ask that question. That's okay. I think that's all I have. So I would support option 1 and I'm good with the, half, FTE. Yeah.
Ms. Hurst?
Thank you. I think, yeah, where my head went was option 1 as well. I think my hesitation would be 2 is one with a reconfigured rec committee. I was envisioning, maybe this is more for Councillor Boyd's consideration than mine, but 2025 being a significant work plan year for a master recreation plan, is that potentially diluting the pool, too much work to do, all that type of stuff with this added responsibility. So maybe just something for consideration when I was pondering this. And I think the other is just more, just my gut is financial constraints of adding FTEs for things. I guess my spidey sense is can't just keep adding and adding and adding, and I'm sensitive to that. If there's good value for it, 100%. And again, I'm just at this phase where I'm still struggling to see where, like, what this will mean to the community, other than, hey, it's a nice to do, but it's cold hard cash. And I'm just having a hard time reconciling that mentally. So I'll leave those are my real comments. But if you're asking me to pick between 1 and 2, it's 1.
That's good.
Yeah, I am in agreement with option 1. I like the idea of rebranding the committee to include both the wellness component, but also the senior mandates. I think that there's a lot of overlap and sort of things that would otherwise be running like similar things that would be running on 2 separate committees anyway. So I think by combining them together, it makes a lot of sense. I think specifically, Councillor Hurst asked about, is it with the Parks Master Plan coming up, is that going to be too big of a project? I think through the previous report that we had, council's objective is to have the rec committee sort of take on the project of reviewing the user fees as well as the eligibility criteria for our discounted rates for facilities. I think it would be really great to have the seniors, to have like a seniors lens through that as well. And I think the same thing with the Parks Master Plan. I think the rec committee would have I would hope, a big role in reviewing that plan. But it's important to have the seniors' perspective in that too. So yeah, I see that there's potential concern for maybe a lot of work, but I think the rec committee hopefully will embrace that and drive on those specific projects that are being requested. I think they'll do really well. So that's just my take on that. In terms of adding the additional full-time coordinator, I think I have a similar sentiment as well to Councillor Hurst. I think it would be great to have. I think there's no shortage of work that particular person could do. But I'm also thinking about the reduction in assessments that we might have, our asset management plan shortfalls, our downloading of all these provincial priorities on the township, and it just seems like it's like piling on pretty quick. And I know we also have our compensation review happening in 2025. We don't know what the outcome of that is gonna be. But I'm thinking that maybe the compensation review component is a good time to maybe look at adding this person more as we're looking at all of the positions throughout the whole corporation. It's just my thought on it. But to Councillor Bailey's point, you're right, we're on a roll with economic development, so I don't wanna lose any of that, but I also am very sensitive to all of these costs that just keep piling on, and we saw through the survey result for the user fees and charges, although the intent wasn't to get that feedback, a lot of the feedback was there's too many people working there, so I'm sensitive to it.
Well, I'm glad council's appreciating great power. Yeah, so, in that vein, we said we have at least, the two members are gonna be 65 years old. The suggestion from staff was, and my question was, have at least two members. In other words, if there's a shortage of, non-great power members, and, there would be more great power members willing to take up the task. You know, committees. So that's my suggestion for that. In terms of the FTE equivalent, adding a 0.5, I agree. Mayor basically said, last time around this was discussed, well, we'll see what the budget comes out and we'll take out if we have to take it out. So leave it in, see how the budget goes and, can afford it, great. If we can't afford it, well, guess what? We can't afford it.
Yep, I agree. It's all part of the budget discussion. We are going to see that reduction in the aggregate assessment. That's a real thing, so that's problematic. I'm supportive. The chair has spoken, supportive of the rebrand of the committee, so that's good. And you're endorsing that. It's great news. I don't know if we need to. Can you word it? Be preferred to be 65 years of age or older? If you get a 57-year-old,
We're not gonna turn them away.
Are we gonna turn them away?
Through you, Mr. Chair, again, the TORs are developed and approved by council. They're how you want these committees to be run and what you want them to look like. If council recalls, we had a cap on youth committee members. And when we received an overwhelming response, we simply appointed them because that's the way council wanted to go. So there very much is some discretion among members of council in terms of committee appointments.
What I'm saying is, why not just make it preferred instead of required? Because then if we get some applications, you gotta come back and say, we gotta amend the TOR or deviate from the TOR. Is council comfortable with that?
Yeah.
The other thing is, if we're gonna open up the TORs, and I haven't had any discussion with you about this, so we'll pin out a grenade, right? Should we be putting in some condition there that the members of committees are in good standing with the township or not in litigation? And maybe you can speak to that, because if we're gonna open up TOR, I'd like to have that embedded in there. Because I find it troubling if you're suing us or we're suing you, and then you're steering the township in the decision making. That's, I feel a conflict. So I'm hoping.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I think there's two places that sort of exists. One is in, I don't recall, I believe it's in our code of conduct that specifies compliance with all regulations, whether they're policies, bylaws, et cetera, of the municipality. So it already is sort of embedded in how the municipality or the expectations, I suppose, of anyone that's has obligations under our codes of conduct. But there is precedent in other municipalities, and staff can certainly go and take a look at what that precedent is for also sort of embedding that into the terms of reference for committees.
At least like staff take a look at it if we're opening up terms of reference. That's good.
I should say, there's already wording in the eligibility criteria that we use that has
Then once
being
you're
in good
on,
standing and, yeah. so
once
there's-
you're on, it can change.
That's the first filter, but once you're on, that's not.
We could use some.
Just, if council's okay, have staff take a look at it. It may not be needed. there may be some presidency.
So through Mr. Chair, then just to clarify the direction, initially, staff were gonna take away the amendments and just have the TORs updated. Would council prefer to see those TORs come back?
All of them?
Whatever we put in one, we'll put in all, so we could just bring back suggested changes to all.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
You may not have any suggestion, but that'll just.
Sure.
Simple direction.
Go ahead. So I agree with, the way, Councilor Hurst is going, to be on the committee and then all of a sudden being litigation. I think that should be right away a conflict of interest and you should be, asked to resign from the committee.
Well, that's what you're gonna look at.
we're gonna,
That's what you're gonna look at.
Yeah, because, to have, no conflict of interest at the beginning and then all of a sudden you have one, it's not right.
That's what she's gonna look at it.
Okay.
And,
I just-
yeah, what I'm hearing is that they're gonna look at it a little more holistically and see if there's other housekeeping amendments they may need to touch up. Instead of just two specific items, they're just gonna take a quick look at the full TOR. And there might see some other tidying up. Is that fair to say? Or we may not. Who knows? Okay, good. So where are we at? Then we were a second?
yes, and so I've just amended it slightly, so that report ADM 2024-052 entitled Seniors Advisory Committee be received, that council proceed with option one as outlined in the report. And that council direct staff to review TORs for all advisory committees and bring back recommended changes to council. That council direct staff, to report back during the 2025 budget process regarding the financial impacts of adding the 0.5 FTE in 2025 and another 0.5 FTE in 2026.
Right, so then we had a mover to second, right?
I have, Councillor Boyda moving and Councillor Bailey second.
Yes, move that. Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I have one question. Sorry, I'm just reading here in option one, suggestion 4. So each committee will be limited to a maximum of 2 goals or objectives at any time. So for youth committee, we right now have 4 goals because we attend 4 events. Does that mean we will now be limited to only attending 2 events? Or is attending events 1 goal?
So through Mr. Chair, we've thought about this in that context because that workload is not the same workload as perhaps, the Heritage Committee's workload.
Yeah.
So what we'd like to propose is that staff bring back work plans to our committee, similar to what council and staff use, so that we can sort of look at what we're doing. There was not the intent to
Yeah.
reduce the number of events
Okay.
for youth.
I figured that, but just how it was worded, I thought, uh-oh. Or if we don't call ours goals, maybe that could be different. Okay, thanks.
I just had one just really quick technical question on there. The the TFR reviews, would it be conceived that those also go to the committee for a review, or is this just going to be kept at this level? And again, I'm not looking for more work, but my only thought would be if the TFR is applicable to the committee, maybe it would be a useful process to have the committee review it because they would be held accountable, but I'm also sensitive that that's a huge amount of work to do. And the feedback you may get could very well be quite minimal, and maybe you're better to keep it at a tighter ring around it. So just, it was a thought, I don't need direction, but just maybe something for consideration.
I'd be hesitant to do that. I mean, we have other policies we put in place. We don't go down with the members that are affected.
Through Mr. Chair, I think the best approach would be, once council's in a spot where they've been approved, to do that consultation. So that, because it's right, it's impacting membership, so making sure they understand expectations, that's.
It was just that it popped into my mind. I thought I'd ask.
No problem. All right, so we're good?
Yes.
All in favor?
Yeah.
That's good, yeah. Sorry, it's your hand. I was looking at-
Sorry, yeah.
No, it's not your fault. It's, okay, that's carried. I believe we're gonna take a break.
Yes, through Mr. Chair, we are back for 1 o'clock, but we are headed into our confidential session at that time.
Okay. We have the forum tree.
Forum and the
We could do
heritage.
that first, if we think.
One
But
is
and heritage.
plowed through right now.
We've got 2 more.
Yeah,
things.
two
We
more?
have 2 more.
Let's just do.
Thank you.
Sorry?
We can always have a working lunch too.
All right, so 9.3.2, we're on our tree planting.
It's more.
For you.
Good, how are you?
Well, whenever you'd like to start.
Okay. Don't have my notes, so I'm kind of doing without my notes. Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of the first report is to provide council with the feedback received from the engagement we completed with both the youth and the rec advisory committees, and then to seek council's direction and approval of that Forum Park tree planting initiative.
Want to read the recommendation? It's fine.
The report ADM 2024-5053 entitled Warren Park Tree Planting Update be received. And the council directs staff to order 100 trees from Wellington County Green Legacy Program for planting in the spring of 2025. And the council approved trees to be planted on areas 1, 3, 5, and 8 as indicated on the site plan. And the council directs staff to reach out and organize a tree planting ceremony with the Aberfoyle Public School and the Township's Youth Advisory Committee.
Move for that, please. That's good. Council Bailey, any other questions?
Yeah, I just, I think I'm good with, good with the 100 trees. I think that's fantastic, and I'm fine with where it's been indicated on the site plan. One of the comments that's come up, through the engagement was the concern about, watering. And so I'm just wondering, instead of finding out what our options are right now, staff might not have had opportunity, but I'm just wondering if there's a way that staff can report back on addressing the watering concerns. I know there was options about, trying to purchase bags or trying to have the truck go through there, or anyway, I'm just wondering how we will be watering the trees after.
My question.
We can report. So through Mr. Chair, staff can take that away. We have a little bit of time here for 2025, and we can report back on what that looks like if there's any solutions that we can provide.
Sure, no question. Bruno?
Maybe just one question. Through the engagement, I think it's through the engagement, there was a comment about where the playground is, I think there's 2 benches there that have no shade, and I was just wondering about potentially, I don't know how this, if it makes any impact on the whole thing, but through the Green Legacy, if we could plant 1 shade tree at each bench, just to provide some shade for parents while they're sitting watching their kids. Other than that, everything else.
We can make note of that.
I suppose.
But these trees are they seedlings or are they,
Through you, Mr. Chair, they are seedlings, but they're the larger 15-gallon pots. So they're more established.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I believe the orders have to be in by October for 2025 for Green Legacy. If you have those conversations with the county, that they're aware we're gonna be a little late with that order.
Through Mr. Chair, we have been talking with the county on it, and they have hold the current sales order that they did send to us, so if we can go ahead and
Good.
prove that even now, that's fine.
Could we request that the shade trees Councilor Goida just mentioned are bigger than seedlings?
It's like, there's 15-gallon trees on there, so that's pretty big.
How high is that though?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the seedlings that often folks do receive through the Green Legacy program are quite small.
Yeah.
These are the big 15-gallon that are already quite well established. They're a few years old already.
But if you're buying a maple or something, it's 5 feet. When you plant it, 4 feet, 5 feet.
It won't provide shade for a
Well, so what if we
long time.
get one, we can get 2 at the benches that would be a little more
I would suggest,
instant shade.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I believe we're receiving the most mature
Okay.
seedlings at the Green Legacy.
Okay.
practice.
don't forget, there's that whole new pavilion-like thing that's
Yes,
for shade, and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
well within the
Yeah.
view of that, so.
Yep. Okay.
staff can do their best to get the largest tree they can, and I believe they're gonna report back on it, or on the shade tree planting by the bench, or is that a given?
I drafted it that council requests that staff determine if shade trees can be planted near prevention.
We're gonna try.
And do so if they can.
Yes, yes.
Like, just go ahead with it if they can. Okay.
All right. All in favor? It's carried.
Look forward to the invitation.
Are you doing the next one too? The Heritage plaque?
Yes.
And I have a question for you after Remembrance Day. I just don't
Okay.
want to have to call you back in.
Mhm.
We'll be close.
Can I move on?
Yes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of the second report is to seek council's direction with respect to drafting a heritage plaquing program for its inclusion and then the 2025 corporate work plan.
Okay. Recommendation?
Yes, that report ADM 2024-054 entitled the Plessis Heritage Plaque Program be received for information. And that council directs staff to draft a heritage plaque program policy to establish a Plessis Heritage Plaque Program for council's consideration and approval, included in the 2025 corporate work plan. And that council directs staff to proceed with option 2 as outlined in the report, and that staff be directed to submit an operating base budget increase request for the proposed 2026 budget based on option 2. And that council directs staff to include a limit of 10 plaques to be issued through the plaque program per year in the initial draft of the policy as outlined in the report.
Move for that, please. Councilor Hurst, Councilor Bailey. Sure. Questions, Councilor Bailey.
Just maybe just a couple thoughts. I know the existing plaques that we have were done by a local resident. And I really liked that. I liked that it was a local person that had done the plaquing and they were accessible if we needed, you know, changes or anything happening to it. I'm presuming we're not going with that same person with these plaques. I also struggled with knowing what brass versus what's the other one? Chrome versus or bronze, brass, and then aluminum, I think was the other option. So I don't know what the difference is in those, so it's hard for me to kind of say which one I like better. But it sounded like they both were similar lasting timeline, or can you speak to which ones would last longer than the others?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have, so the original plaques that we have in some of the houses were installed anywhere between 2000 to 2010. I believe was kind of the timeline for those. And we have heard some feedback that they are deteriorating in some capacities. And then the aluminum plaques, we've reached out to other member municipalities because that's the plaques that they use. And they've told us the timeline for those plaques would be anywhere between, I think it was 10 to 25 years. And I think they referenced that it's basically direction to sun exposure. So picking a side of the house that isn't in the direct sunlight is beneficial.
Okay. Do you know what the current plaques are? Are they brass or bronze? Do we know?
No, they're
Not
not.
aluminum.
I could find that information for you.
Just curious. I'm more curious than anything. Okay, so I'm okay. We're going with, I think, staff have recommended option 2 and the base budget increase for 2026. So that bumps that down the road a little bit, and then trying to do the 10 plaques per year. I think that's great. And it's an opt-in program.
Correct.
Okay.
Councilor Hurst.
Yeah, I'm supportive. I think this is a good opportunity to showcase the heritage in the community. I think maybe my only question, this is maybe my presumption, would be when this is enacted, presumably 10 plaques would be ordered. And if they're not utilized all in that particular year, future years, we would scale this down, or I guess maybe my thinking here is 10s are high water mark on an annual basis, right? When they're gone, and then you start the next year. And if there are some that are left over, then it may potentially be a reduction in the order, depending on how staff utilize.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we wouldn't actually order the plaques until we've received an application, just because they would be specialized plaques with different writing per household. So we would order up to 10 in that calendar year. But yes, depending on how that is received in the first few years, we could make changes then accordingly.
Yeah, I'm supportive. I think I like the design of the aluminum one. I think it is consistent with the other signage that we have throughout the township, so I like it.
I support it, couple of comments, in here you said that the flags will be installed by township staff, can the homeowner request the opportunity to install them themselves, can that be, accommodated as well?
So through Mr. Chair, I think that's something we could look at when we develop what this program is gonna look like, different options for installation.
Second question, I should have, asked it earlier when we were doing the user fees, but, it's sort of tangential anyway. We had the, posters suggested by this committee, and we're not selling that well. And my suggestion is, why not ask, Agri-Flow Market, they can, take on selling these. In other words, they could sell them for $20 and give them a $5 commission fee, and, we're supposed to last, the user fee suggested we, sell it to our residents at 10, I don't have a problem with that. But if we can sell more than 50 going to the Agri-Flow Market, I would, like to do that.
Yep, so through Mr. Chair, staff are gonna inquire with the market about what that looks like, and we can report back to council.
Clear? Great, all in favor? That's carried. Before you leave, because I believe that's,
That's it to reports, yes.
Remembrance Day is coming up. Did they reach out to you about the, not agendas, but what are they called?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, I'm currently working with the Optimist Club on not the first rendition of the Remembrance Day Bulletin, but yes, so we're working on finalizing what that looks like.
Just didn't want them coming in the day of and the demands. Okay, excellent.
I just with respect to that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have not posted, we can post the. If we've done that in past years, can't.
So through Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if we've done it in past years, but we can take a look and see how we can push that information out. We'll work with the Optimist Club to see what kind of engagement they do, and then we can see what we can do.
Get calls from the residents this time of year, somebody to understand what it is, what time and all that stuff.
I was gonna bring this up in announcements, but I didn't want
No worries.
to. Back in. Okay.
That it would be helpful. There's always confusion.
Social media is a good opportunity if that information is pushed out.
I'm just glad that they reached out or you
Yes.
reached out, whichever way it went, because, yeah. Instead of being, oh, no, need this done now. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so we're gonna break, right?
Yes, so for everyone online, we are breaking for lunch until 1 o'clock, and then we are moving into our confidential session, so we'll be offline for a little bit.
All right, welcome back. So I thought you have some recommendations or resolutions, whatever we call them.
Yes, the council should go into closed session under section 239 in Municipal Act for the purpose of a confidential report regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. And this is an update on an ongoing litigation matter. And secondly, confidential verbal report regarding the security of the property of the municipality or local board. And this is in relation to municipal property.
Okay, move that, Councilor Hurst, Councilor Goyda, favor? Carried. Opposed. Yep. So if I see some recommendations coming to the close.
Yes. The council moves into open session at 2:17 PM.
We can move for that, please. Councilor Hurst, Councilor Spillis, all in favor? Carried. Next one, please.
The council receives a confidential report regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and that's in relation to an ongoing litigation update. And confidential verbal report regarding the security of the property of the municipality or local board in relation to municipal property, and that staff proceed as directed.
Councilor Bailey, Councilor Goyda?
Yeah.
All in favor? It's carried. The next item is 10.2, right? You have a recommendation, I guess, as presented.
Right, so I can put it up on the screen
Sure.
if you'd prefer. Yeah.
Would council endorse, me giving some thoughts on this ahead of going around the table? So made some notes here. Um, so I thought this was driven from when the premier stated the feasibility study for the tunneling under the 401, which then led to excess soil, which then led to this.
No, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, we had our initial, new business item from the previous agenda, which was specific to us, you're correct, the tunneling project. This resolution is, in response to the ERO on the proposed changes to the excess soil regs. Yeah.
So my concern around this, they're kind of similar, but my concern around this is that they reference a aggregate reuse depot. And to me, that is not defined in the ARA, Aggregate Resource Act. So I think part of our resolution should be, whereas aggregate reuse depot is not defined, we need clarification. Do you have an answer for that?
No, but what I was gonna mention is I have asked our, they were XCG, they're now Trace Consulting, our soil experts, to just clarify on what that intent is, because I had the same question, sorry.
So I feel we should have a component of this resolution where that is not defined, and whereas we have concerns that aggregate or existing aggregate operations will become aggregate reuse depots, and thus they wouldn't be interim land uses, and in contravention of the provincial policy statement that aggregate resource sites must be interim land uses. Well, on and on and on, you know what I mean? Because they're using this term, but are they meaning aggregate sites, or are they creating a new? It's on the ERO in this, either supporting documents.
I agree, I had, to you, Mr. Chair, I had some questions around what that term at aggregate use reuse, as well as small liquid soil processing site, so an aggregate reuse site.
So this is, I'm just gonna read what I wrote, and it's not penned very well, but I put define aggregate reuse depot. It's not defined in the ARA or PPS. Allowing importing of material will require site alteration permit. If it's not, like, if they're not trying to make it fit somewhere else. Permitting this use does not overrule zoning. Attempting to place these in aggregate sites that have recycled asphalt aggregate concrete permissions on their site plans will create a use that is not in compliance with provincial policy, which dictates that aggregate sites are interim land uses. Any site that begins importation will have legal proceedings commenced from the township, is my opinion. Sites shall be treated as industrial sites and tax appropriate. All because they haven't defined this aggregate use. So I would be comfortable approving this resolution with the condition that staff, or how could we address the concerns around the definition of that, and whether these things will be compliant to provincial policy statement, whether they're gonna be in aggregate sites, all that.
There's a clause in here that says these facilities would be required to provide a written notice to an MECP director and the relevant local municipality, which could be applied in respect to all types of depots to facilitate compliance before commencing and upon closure of operations.
So we've also had zero support from the MECP and our local representative. Maybe that's good because I was being sued.
Legal button.
Sorry, everything's good. It's just, made an awful noise there.
Thinking of the mayor.
But you know, MECP issues ECAs for these things. Will MECP say, go ahead, and then they don't have the proper
Well, the way
zone?
it's written, it says they need the MECP's director's approval and the relevant local municipality, which will be applied in respect to all types of depots. No, I understand what you're saying, so,
So anyhow, I would like,
To you, Mr. Chair, so, the question I think we need to ask, and I've reached out and we may get a response shortly, is does the term, are we interpreting that term aggregate reuse site properly? Is the intent meaning an ARA licensed site? I'm not sure that's what it is intending to say. I think it's meaning something else, and so I just think we need clarification on what that intent is, because I think it would be unusual for the MECP to contemplate regulations that apply in a licensed area that's governed by another ministry.
okay, well, yeah,
Right, and I don't think that's what it's saying, but we can get some clarification so that we understand. it properly.
could we simply put in the second, after a recommendation, or the second, well, after the first whereas, we say, whereas the township of Portland does not support, is it ancillary? Uses including air reuse depots in licensed aggregate pits, and then just leave the rest.
Because we don't know what it means.
Because we don't, well, until we get a definition, then
Yeah.
it just sounds like it could be
well,
interpreted.
they are allowing now in an aggregate, resource. But,
Where do they have the authority to do that?
they're saying the operation of aggregate reuse depot within Aggregate Resources Act licensed areas will be clarified, recognized in the role of the AAR license and associated site plans. For greater certain exemption from blah, 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 of the entire correction act does not affect the need for these depots to comply with other relevant laws and to acquire relevant permissions, including any required permissions from ministry, municipalities, or other government bodies.
So back to what I was stating, this is saying they're gonna change the ARA, they're going to permit it on the site plans.
But they still say that you're gonna have to have, permission from a municipality.
So I think we need to reaffirm that changing the ARA and permitting them through the site plans is contrary to the provincial policy statement. Area sites, we're gonna have to. I don't know if we can sort it out today, but
It's November 21st, right?
First, so we could bring it back on
Bring
the
it back.
20th.
bring it back on the 20th, we'll try to get some clarity on that. And so can we just get deferral?
I like putting in that township approval piece. That's, if you could ever get that, that's your trump.
I think it's gonna be clarified. They say that they will do that, but I really.
Yeah.
Hear what our mayor's saying, it's said that before, and we got through it.
Yeah. So can we just defer it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, then motion to defer it, suppose Counselor first, all in favor, sorry,
I had a few questions.
send them to her.
Okay.
And then it'll be part of the next package. That works.
It's just, I want to know how this posting would impact our site alteration bylaw.
So,
And I have 4 questions about it.
mhm.
So why don't, yeah, can you send those to her?
Yeah.
And so I boss. Make sure you include them.
Yep, we'll bring back maybe like a wholesome report on it once we have.
Sorry.
If there's any other questions that council has too, submit them and we can. address them.
10.3. Great.
Budget increase.
Yeah, the recommendation.
So this is to receive for information, but as council will recall in our agreements that we have with our conservation authorities, this is in line with what we've expected, that we have committed to I believe it's a 5-year term, with information coming back in every budget cycle so that council can look at what's being described. And so these amounts will be included into our budget to be presented on the 20th. And if there's further conversation that council wishes to have on them, we can have them at that time, if that's preferred.
Okay, can you read the recommendation?
Yes, it's to receive for information at this time.
We'll move it, please. Mr. Harris, Mr. Schools, any questions? All in favor? Years updates. And then the Remembrance Day ceremony at Wellington County Museum and Archives yesterday with Councilor Bulmer. Great little ceremony, very, very windy. Read the honor roll for World War I, World War II. I believe. And then we have our ceremony November 11th over at the community center. Probably starts around 10:30, if that's historically correct, maybe a little sooner. Do we have? Just looking at Courtney, we have anything? Just received an invite from Minister Bethel Pauley's office to participate in pre-budget meetings, November. When the calendar, 2nd. It was November 12th. Down in Toronto, November 14th, try. Yeah, 10:30 to 12:30, probably 15-20 minutes. TAML meetings coming up. We have 3 letters in response to the aggregate assessment change that the executive is gonna hopefully approve and distribute, so we'll make sure they get included on the next agenda for here. That's it. So, is there anything?
That's good.
We can do it to receive mine. We can.
And members at the same time.
Anything from members?
No, I just have a comment. I didn't know about the Remembrance Day thing happening up at the museum. So if things like that are happening, could you let us know ahead of time?
Well,
Like,
they should be pushing out more information. It's always a
where
week
would we
before.
get that information
On the
from?
website. Yeah,
So I have to go to the website to look it up?
Yeah.
Not good enough.
it's always a week before. And I feel it's because all the other memory slides would actually be having their ceremonies on November 11th, so. What was yesterday, Monday, Tuesday, but I'll try to read.
And it doesn't have to be just like anything else happening in the community would be good to know.
Can we just send a note to Yana?
Is it Yana's team or the clerk's team? Do we know who sort of organizes that?
Yana reached out to me ahead of the clerks. The clerk invite came out a few days ago, so.
Like they had that Indigenous Circle event thing too, and then I heard about it after the fact. I thought it would have been nice to have known about some of these events that are happening, because,
Yeah, I agree.
you know, anyway,
So maybe we could just ask the clerks to.
and the
Send it
fire
out to you guys.
activities.
For Council Bailey's benefit, on November 10th, beginning at 5:30, remembrance candle will be placed at each memorial marker at the County Museum.
November 10th.
That's on Monday.
Any other updates, concerns?
We had a Heritage Committee meeting on Monday and we went through a lot of stuff with the group and just a high degree of engagement and just a shout out to staff. We're having an open house tonight at 7 p.m. for interested property owners that are going through the designation process. And I would say just compliment staff. This will be the kind of the 3rd cohort of going through this and in this term of council, and it's been a learning process around how to appropriately engage homeowners that are caught up in this process. But I would say the tone of the previous open house was much more of a narrative and a dialogue. And I think I'm appreciative of staff of putting themselves out there to have a more comfortable conversation with homeowners that are going through this process. So I think the tone has been much more warm and it allows for a better environment for people that are maybe don't fully understand or grasp the process of designating a heritage property. So that's taking place tonight.
Excellent. Thank you, staff, for all the hard work. I know you're an expert on heritage buildings now and things you learn in Portsmouth.
And the, sorry, Jimmy, can I put you on the spot? Can the chief just let us know about the events you have coming up for Christmas this year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so I'll know more tonight because I'm meeting with the firefighters to
Okay.
to finalize that stuff with the food drives and that, because we're not sure the exact date yet, so I'll know more by tomorrow.
Stay tuned for food drive.
Okay.
It's to receive, for information.
And the member, please, Councilor Dwight, Councilor Spillis, all in favor? That's carried. Forest bylaws.
That the following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2024-067, being a bylaw to permit the municipality to impose fees or charges with respect to services or activities provided related to accounts payable and for the use of its property, and repeal bylaw 042-2023.
Member, please, Councilor Hurst, Councilor Spillis, all in favor? It's carried. Announcements. Great. Business arising from the closed session. Seeing none, most motion. None. New business. Purgatory bylaw.
The following bylaw be read as and taken 3 times, read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2024-068, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council for the corporation of the township of Whistler at its meeting held on the 6th day of November, 2024.
Member, please, Councilor Hurst, Councilor Bailey.
Yep.
All in favor? It's carried. Adjourned.
Council hereby adjourns at 2:34 PM.
Let's go ahead. Councilor Spillis, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone.